Welcome, everybody. This is the meeting for the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, Monday, March 4th, 2024. Chris, are you rolling?
Yeah, you go.
Okay. At 7 p.m., we're meeting in the Tannis Room, 3rd floor, 10 Pearl Street, Stoughton, Mass. This is a public hearing. It's in person and virtual online. Janice, can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody can hear us. And let me just read a couple of things here. In accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which extends the Governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, National Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20, until March 31, 2025, this meeting will be conducted both in person and virtually via Google Meets. The public hearing will be held by Intergovernmental Relations on Monday, March 4th, which is this evening at 7 p.m. to discuss the annual town meeting articles that are listed below on the agenda. All right, first of all, I need to call the meeting to order and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Can I ask everybody to stand if you're able and recite the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Please be seated. All right, we have to determine if there's a quorum present, which I know there is, but I got to do a roll call. And I'm just acting chair. I won't be voting tonight, but as the town moderator, I can be acting chair just to run the meeting. So I'll just run through the list of names. Just say you're present. Tamisha Civil. Jeffrey Blacker.
Here.
Thank you. Melissa Lynch.
Here.
Thank you, Melissa. Elisa Rinaldi. Neil Valley. Janice Schneider.
Here.
Thank you. Janai Mugash Singh.
Mungle Singh.
Mungle Singh. Sorry, Janai. And Frank Lyons.
Up here.
Okay, so I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get that number, Sam?
Yeah.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. We're going to proceed with the meeting. This is a public hearing. First on the list is, on our agenda, is to review and approve the draft meeting minutes.
So moved.
Okay, can I just announce the date? You approve them as what date are they?
October.
2023.
I don't remember the exact date we met.
You have the
Fourth.
October 4th of 2023. Okay, Melissa Lynch made a motion to approve as written. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written, please say aye.
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 I actually have to do a roll call vote since we're online.
Do we have a second for that?
Is there a second?
Sure.
Frank Lyons seconded. This is to approve the minutes as written. Jeffrey Blacker.
Aye.
Thank you. Melissa Lynch.
Aye.
Janice Schneider.
Approve.
Thank you. Janai.
Aye.
And Frank Lyons.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you all. Let's move on with the agenda. Okay, can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, Janice made the motion.
Yep.
Melissa Lynch seconded. I'm gonna have to do a roll call vote since we're online. Again, we'll run through the names. Jeffrey Blacker.
Aye.
Thank you. Melissa Lynch.
Aye.
Janice Schneider.
Aye.
Janai.
Aye.
And Frank Lyons.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Public hearing is now open. Right on the top of the list, we'll go Article 3, accept and contract funds for town roads. Mark, would you mind if I take the deputy chief first?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, just to, since he's, Deputy Chief Brian Holmes, would you like to take this seat here? Someone asked him to come in. Oh, there's Alicia. Welcome, Alicia. Can you hear us? Alicia, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Alicia?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you're a member of the committee, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Melissa, if you want to leave, you can.
That's fine. I'll stick
Okay,
for a
thank
little
you. Okay, can you add her to the people present? So we do have 6 members present. All right, in the discretion of the acting chair, we're gonna take an article out of order. We're going to Article 49, Civil Service Revocation. Deputy Chief, could you introduce yourself to the meeting, people in the meeting room and online?
Sure. Brian Holmes, Deputy Chief of Police, Stoughton Police Department.
Okay, the floor is yours.
The town is seeking to remove the police department from civil service. Just to summarize some of the reasons for it, the system is over 100 years old. It's an antiquated system. It was originally created to eliminate nepotism and patronage and political favoritism, to create a written exam process for police jobs and fire jobs when the system was created. The town is seeking to leave civil service so we can have more flexibility in the hiring process. Leaving civil service would allow us to be able to recruit people in whatever fashion we see fit. Like if we want more diversity in the police department, if we want younger people, if we want people that are bilingual, we'd have the flexibility to use our own process that would be guided and governed by a I guess you could say a very robust policy that would be within the standards of the accreditation standards. And you know, it's an antiquated system. It's becoming a very popular thing in Massachusetts for police departments to leave civil service so that we can have flexibility in our own hiring process. So there would be a policy guided process for entrance level police officer positions, and there is already an agreed upon set of terms for the promotional process for promotion to sergeant and promotion to lieutenant. And included within that process that is absent the civil service system is an assessment center, an evaluation of somebody's performance, education and experience, seniority within the department, a written exam. So it allows us to do more. What we get from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts when a civil service exam is administered is a list of candidates, and you're stuck with what you get. And if you don't get a quality candidate, you know, we have a very big shovel when it comes to background investigations. We want to make sure that we're hiring people that don't have issues in the past, because we don't want to make that 3-decade mistake and be stuck with somebody for 30 years. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. All right, questions for the committee first. The way we're gonna run the meeting is committee members gonna ask their questions first, and present people online. And then, once they're done asking questions, we'll open up to the public in the room and anybody that's online. All right? So, first, the committee members. Anybody present?
Yeah,
Frank, identify yourself first.
yeah, Frank Lyons, Precinct 8. Now, is it just fire and police that use this civil service exam? Or is there anybody else in town that uses it?
No, the last Department of Public Works in Massachusetts that had civil service was this town, and I think they've been out of it for some time now.
Right, so this just impacts you guys?
That's it, police and fire.
Just fire too? I should ask the chief if he wants to say something.
So I don't know if that's included in this warrant
okay.
article.
Let me see if
Do you have a copy of it?
I do have the warrant. Chief Carroll, you here for the civil service part?
I am, yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. You have a presentation for us?
I can just,
Go ahead.
actually,
The floor is yours.
the parallel, the deputy, yeah, I can just, parallel Deputy Chief's, words. I will tell you that civil service, although it was useful in his time, I'm sure, we've kind of grown past it. It's a one-size-fits-all. I feel as if it, and I've felt for a long time that it constrains us. An example I use throughout the state, even when trying to change some of this, is we need, for any promotional exam, we need 4 officers. If there's a captain exam, we need 4 lieutenants to sign up. For a deputy exam, we need 4 captains to sign up. If we don't have those 4, that we cannot take the exam that year. Where I feel it's unfair is Boston, who has 56 captains, deputy exam. They don't scale it, which is frustrating. So we have 6 captains on the department. If half of them want to take it, we can't. And it's given every 2 years, so we're concerned with that. Again, our community is growing. It's diverse. If you have really good managers of your department, you can fill those needs of the community. Civil service, they give you the list of who happened to take the entry-level fire exam that year, and you're held to that. And I think that, in today's world, we have a lot of tools and resources out there that I feel as if we can pick and retain and possibly grab better candidates that fill the needs for Stoughton. So again, I think the deputy did a great job on it. We're in talks with the town, or the union's in talks with the town right now on how we're going to work out the promotional assessment and test, but I think they're going to come parallel to the police. So I think this is a positive move for the town. And I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Chief Carroll. Okay, let's go back to the committee.
I do
Frank?
have one more question.
Okay.
And I don't know, this is to both of you. All right, do you see any financial implications from this? If we don't use the candidates with traditional use, will it cost less, cost more, not really make any difference?
I mean, candidly, it could cost a little bit more. The people that take the exam, we would insist that there's a regular exam fee consistent with what civil service charges right now. So in the end, that can be a wash. Sometimes it can be a cost associated with it, though.
Now, is that just for taking the exam? It's like, so that's like hundreds of dollars, or,
Yeah, I think it's $250 to take the police exam now.
so it's not $30,000?
No.
It's,
No. So if you had, 30 candidates come in to take a written exam for us, and you charge them $150 each, that would offset the cost of any exams that we'd have to have scored or anything like that.
okay, now the candidates, would they be coming at the same pay rate, or?
Entry level is all governed by the collective bargaining agreements, so
Okay.
yeah, they would.
All right, now, I'm asking him because he's sitting next to me. Is that,
No, it's fine, and I would say the same, and as they work out the negotiations, but also, there's a lot of fire departments that are outside of civil service now, and they don't necessarily do an entry-level fire exam. What they do is they will put out basically looking to hire, and they will accept resumes and then interview. So there's no real entry-level exam. The exams come into play more on the promotional process within our own department. I think the biggest cost, if it gets to it, would probably be an assessment portion of the exam at the deputy chief or higher. We really wouldn't, it would probably be more of an internal assessment portion of the exam. So I would get area chiefs to come in and give that assessment. Whether it's a practical or a oral interview. But, as far as cost, maybe initially on that assessment aspect, but we would probably do more what Foxborough and Franklin Fire do, is put out a scope fire is hiring, receive resumes, vet them, and then call in the best candidates for an interview. So I don't see much of a cost on that other than time with the chief officers.
okay, thank you. And,
Let me.
Okay.
We'll get back to you, okay?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Melissa, did you have a question?
Do we have an estimate on how many towns and cities have exited and how long ago they have exited?
I heard the number 80, 80 over the last 3 or 4 years out of 351 cities and towns.
And that's just over the past 3 years, it doesn't go back a decade with some going back, okay.
No, I mean, generally, a lot of the Cape departments were non-civil service back in the day when I was looking for a job. And they do their own examination process, and the process is rigorous once you pass the exam, so.
Do we know or have we heard of any state funding limitations or repercussions that the departments may suffer or the town by revoking civil service?
I don't understand your question, I don't think.
So the state can fund it different things towards a town,
Yeah.
and I know that this has happened in other areas of, throughout the Commonwealth. So if we're not using civil service and that's something that the state finds to be something that is important, we've gone a different direction. Do we foresee or have we heard of any towns or cities having negative implications by going in this direction?
No, but what it looks like on the horizon is that the Massachusetts Post Commission and the Civil Service Commission and the Municipal Police Training Committee, they're all kind of very tightly connected, and I think that one will eventually absorb the other.
Okay. And then my last one is around standing operating procedures do we already have those in place? Are they drafted? Are they ready to go? So once we transition, have they been vetted? Is there a board that reviews that? How does that? I just want to make sure we're instilling confidence in the police department, in the fire department, who are making these standard operating procedures.
Yep.
To ensure that the public feels very much confident in everything that's going on.
That's a great question. So the collective bargaining that's just wrapped up with the patrol officers and the superior officers union, it has a promotional process broken down in the collective bargaining agreement. What would then have to happen once town meeting authorizes us to leave civil service, we'd start drafting a policy that comes right from the accreditation standards.
Okay.
So it would have to fit within the Mass Police Accreditation Commission model for recruitment and retention and hiring and all that.
And I'm assuming that would be the same on the fire side.
Chief Carroll, did you want to respond?
Yeah, so I can actually, I can honestly say, because I do go in with civil service and I review the promotional exams, and I can tell you that there's a lot of confusion in civil service. It's really a cookie cutter type of process. What they're trying to use is, let's say, a big city department's exam and promotional reading materials for Stoughton Fire. They're trying to apply Boston Fire's policies to Stoughton Fire's operations and having our members try to study and act as such, where they respond to a call for a fire with, I think, approximately 46 members. We go with 11. So as you can tell, just in that alone, our policies don't match, right? So what we'll be able to do is actually customize those questions, promotional exams, to really fit the needs of Stoughton. And you know, the big thing, a lot of civil service departments, you would ask the question, a lot of the towns or municipalities getting out of civil service, there's a big stop at the state level because they do want to hold. But what Stoughton has the advantage of, you have to go out the way you went in. Stoughton went in on a town meeting vote. I believe the police, in like 1906, fire department, I believe 1923 or something like that. So we came in through town meeting vote, we would go out through town meeting vote. There's a lot of towns that went in through state legislation. So the legislation, and I think Deputy is shaking his head yes, because he knows there's a pile of municipalities on the governor's and the state desk asking to leave. They're just holding it up. We do have the advantage that we can kind of move this process along. So the number who are actually out as to the numbers that want to get out, aren't really accurate to what's going on right now. Civil service is an issue. It's a problem. And I believe there was just a ruling on a promotional exam on the police side in another city. Some bias, and they lost. Civil service lost. I think it was either racially biased to the promotional exam. This is something that down Stoughton does not want to get involved with. At least I don't want to get involved with that. So I think that we're seeing this down the horizon. We're making sort of a proactive move here. And a lot of departments that I know that are out of it are doing very, very well.
Thank you.
Okay. Janai, did you have a question? You had your hand up, you put it down?
I did. So to that point, what does the training look like for folks who are coming in, and how does that change or influence what you're already providing? And are there costs associated with that?
Chief Chief
Or
Carroll.
like especially around like cultural
Let the
competency.
chief go first. Chief Carroll, you wanna take that first?
Yeah, so if I'm tracking your question correctly, so the training, so we require an emergency medical technician at the lowest. We are looking for paramedics. This is part of the problem. Usually the members already have their paramedic or EMT, but we do like to look for the paramedic who has already had his, you know, their 2-year schooling ahead of them. We're limited. We ran out of paramedics, so we had to go to EMTs. There were no more paramedics on the civil service list. That is of no cost to the town. Their paramedic program. So as far as training on our interviews, as always, we still vet civil service. And mind you, civil service does not go through any type of vetting. It's just a open exam on a Saturday. It's not like they're looking for pre-qualifications to sit for the exam. When they do that, if they are paramedics, it would go to a paramedic list, but you don't have to be a paramedic to sit down and take a firefighter entry-level exam. Civil service does nothing but proctor the exam, to be honest with you. I don't know whether it's different for the police, but, you know, moving forward, we will be able to have an HR aspect to our interviews. We'll really be able to vet them. We are also, they're really strict. Whoever they send on that list, we can only get so many names for one position from civil service. And then we're really held to those 3 names. And if I want to bypass somebody because they're just not a good fit, I have to submit a bypass letter to the Civil Service Commission, who this person can also appeal. Then we have to go in to the One Ashburton Place and sit in front of the board of attorneys and actually argue why we don't want this person or why we did bypass them. If this person has a history that does not fit who we are as an organization, I still have to answer to them, you know. And then ultimately, as you may or may not know, the town manager is the ultimate hiring manager of this town. So it would also have to go through that whole process of, you know, making sure that the town manager, you know, agrees with that hiring. So, you know, again, civil service, getting away from civil service actually allows us to do more and ask more questions and pick the right candidate. And that's how I feel. And I don't know whether the police have a different view on that, but.
No, I agree with the fire chief. The civil service process, it's mainly has to do with hiring and promoting. Once you get the job as a police officer, you go to a 1,000-hour or 20-week academy. There is some cultural competency in the basic academy, and then we do probably an average of 64 hours of continuing ed every year to maintain certifications. I think it was 2 years ago cultural competency was included in that, but the state Municipal Police Training Committee, they dictate what training we do, and there's a committee of people that puts that annual training together in the mandatory in-service.
Thank you, Brian. Janice, did you have a question?
Hi, Bob, thank you. Yes, Janice Schneider, Precinct 6. I couldn't find the information someplace else, so if town meeting votes to approve this, what would be the timeline? How quickly would it happen? Can you explain the timeline, please?
Yep, so it's my understanding, as the chief explained, that we can leave civil service the same way we came in, so we have the advantage of time with that once town meeting authorizes it, we're out of civil service. But with that
Like
being...
that same day? I'm sorry,
So-
that same day?
Yes and no. With that being said, the town has agreed to keep any promotional lists, which they're good for 2 years. Promotional lists for people that are waiting for a position as a sergeant or a lieutenant until those certifications expire. So that'll probably be about 18 months from the time of town meeting. And then we would probably finish up with the patrol officer certification before we create a process. So, you know, it would happen immediately, but we have to keep the certification for the promotional lists for, I think it would be about 18 months by the time those lists expire.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief Carroll, any other
So do you
comments on
have
that?
to
Jeff? Jeff Blacker,
sorry.
did you have a question?
Jeff Blacker, precinct 2.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Jeff.
so do you have those people that you have to keep? Do you have to hire those people specifically, or can you also hire other people once we agree that you're out of civil service?
No,
You just mentioned you had to keep them for 18 months, that list.
so we would hire only from that list.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, any other committee members have questions? Okay, I'm gonna open up to the public. Okay, no other committee members? All right, to the public, anybody in the meeting room first? Anybody from the public have any questions? Seeing no hands raised. Anybody online have questions? Okay, I just have a quick question, I guess a member of the public. Bob Mullen, 19 Clover Lane. Now, I know in my younger days, I used to, you know, look at online civil service exams. How does someone find about, get access to Stoughton Police or Fire?
You'd see us campaigning about it.
Okay,
What this would give us the ability to do is, we could go to local colleges where we know the seniors are graduating, set up a table and say, hey, we're having an exam. The exam is this date, this time. Here's one of the people that's on the recruiting team. But we'd also blast it out on social media, put it on the webpage, come to public comments and talk about it here.
so you still have an exam?
We still have an exam.
Okay. Same thing for the fire department, Chief Carroll?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Mullen. I think, you know, whether they, and they are in negotiations now, so I don't want to speak to, but aside from having an entry-level exam, I would actually reach out to all and there are a lot of paramedic programs, education centers around, trying to look for people who are in the paramedic program now, teach for the paramedic program, or even EMT, because that's really where we want to pull from. I think, you know, I know that today's world is much different than it was when we got into civil service, so social media would certainly be an outreach. And I think would have a really good opportunity there. But targeting those paramedic programs in colleges would be, I think we would be able to get a lot of candidates. And you know, a lot of them, you know, they are in private ambulance because they just can't, they're sitting on civil service list, or they just haven't taken a civil service exam. If they didn't take that civil service exam in October, they can't take another one. I think they're doing them every year now. They used to do them every 2 years. They can't get on the list for another whole year. You know, we can't even hire. We've had very good candidates walk through the door and say, you know, I just graduated from, you know, university, and I also have my paramedic. I would love to get on the fire department. I'm like, well, you have to wait till next October to even take the exam, and then the results don't come out in March. We're still waiting for the last exam results to come out, and they took the test in October. There's no list right now I can hire from, and I have to fill positions. I have to wait till, I think, March 15th. I could have hired months ago if we had this open. I could have hired the minute we had that opening and started filling that position. So, but we will, to your question, we will do probably the same thing with some sort of outreach. Does Franklin and Foxborough have been talking to their chiefs, and they work very well for them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Did someone, Peter, would you identify yourself, name and address, as a member of the public?
Sure. Peter Murphy, Precinct 2. Question I have is, who actually does the hiring for the police and the fire department? Is that like the police chief, the fire chief? They have the final say?
So we work in a town where the charter gives the town manager the hiring authority. So the town manager hires everybody in the police department except for the police chief. When it comes to the select board, they hire the police chief. When it comes to patrol officers' positions, entry level, we have a committee of people that does the work. We do the interviews after a background check. And the town manager usually just, he or whomever is in that seat, they're welcome to come in and see the interviews and see the candidate, but they'll usually just adopt the recommendation of the chief.
Okay, and when you said a background check, that's done on everybody on the police and fire department, like a Corey check?
I don't want to speak for the chief. I'm pretty sure they do. We do an extensive one.
Okay.
Chief Carroll?
Yes, so we also do it, the police were doing ours, and, they, they are overwhelmed on their part. So we decided on the last, year to go through a private investigation company that, does this for Canton, Needham, and other departments. I think it allows our police department to free up a little bit and not weigh them down on chasing these background checks, but, so we hired a private investigation firm that does a full background check. The booklet's probably, I don't know, I would say 30 pages, deep by the time we're done with them. And that also goes to a committee, a board that sits in front of the hiring process. But again, to the deputy's point, the town manager does the hiring. He has the final say.
Okay, he has the final. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Brian, Deputy Chief. I think
Thank
that's
you.
it, and just the process will be, if we get through the whole public hearing this evening, this committee will vote at the end of the evening. After we close the public hearing, we'll try to get the votes in, and we can let you know how the votes go.
Thank you for taking
Thank
it
you
out of
both.
order. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Long.
You're welcome, Chief Carroll.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Brian, Deputy Chief. All right, next up, let's go to the top of the list. Article 3, accepting contract funds for town roads. Mark Tisdale. Can you introduce yourself, Mark?
Sure. Mark Tisdale, Assistant Town Manager, Town Engineer. This is one of those, every year you get about 15, 20 boilerplate articles that are the same every year. This is one of those. It allows the town to accept and contract funds for town roads. For example, if we have something off a state contract for paving or curb work or things like that, that would apply under this article. Any other contractors we would contract to do work on our roads would fall under this contract. It covers a lot of different things. There's no money associated with this article, it's just a legal thing.
All right, any questions from the committee? Let's say online first, anybody online? Seeing no hands. Okay, anybody in-house here? Seeing none? Okay, anybody from the public? Going around once, seeing none? Oh, you here before? Okay, okay. Identify yourself, please, again.
If you take my article next, I can go home.
No. Interesting.
So, Peter Murphy, still precinct 2. On this article here, does this tie into the chapter 90 money?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's part of it, yep.
so this is to, I don't quite understand it, let me put it that way.
It's just it's really a boilerplate article that allows us to contract with funds to utilize to improve our roads.
Basically,
could be
bring
state
outside
funds.
contractors
Yeah,
in.
outside contractors, could be with the state. It's just a blanket article for all those contracts.
Okay, and also I believe there was an article last year for $2 million to do the repaving of the roads.
Yeah, so that
And
would
there's
be, right.
This year here, there's another article coming up very similar to that.
The paving of road articles go every fall,
Okay,
yeah, from now on.
so that'll be the same idea.
Yep. So any contracts that we would line up for that project, for that article, would fall on this. This authorizes us to do that every year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Article 4, apply for and accept federal state funding. Mr. Tisdale.
Okay, Mark Tisdale, Assistant Town Manager, Town Engineer. Again, this is one of those boilerplate articles that you see every year. It allows you to accept state and federal funds, which we do actually have a lot of. For example, there's a lot of state grants we apply for. We get the grants, we're allowed to accept those funds with an article like this. I don't really have much more to add than that. So I don't wanna make something complicated that's simple.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any questions from the committee?
And this is to accept any state, federal grants. It's
Yeah.
not just related to roads or, it's overarching.
Everything.
And we do this every single year,
Right.
on repeat.
It's a
Okay.
boilerplate, yep, good question.
Okay.
You okay, Melissa?
No, I'm fine. I
Okay, just one,
wanted-
okay. Anybody else from the committee? Frank?
Well, does chapter 70 money for the schools fall into that?
I would assume it does, but I'm not an attorney, so I'd have to ask our town council, but.
Okay,
yeah.
the
It's
assumption
any
is
state
it probably would.
and federal funds, so if it's state and federal funds, which it is, I would assume it is.
Okay, and that's just, I had asked Bob
Yeah, you
about
asked
that
Bob.
earlier. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody online from the committee? Seeing no hands raised, we'll move on right to the public. Anybody from the public in-house here? Seeing none. Online from the public? Anybody? Seeing none, thank you. Let's move on to the next article. I'm gonna take these in order.
Yeah, that's fine.
Article 18, CPC Community Preservation Committee FY 2025 Budget Report. And as you come to the table, could you identify yourselves for the public and for the committee?
I'm Michael Barrett, Precinct 4. I'm the treasurer of the Community Preservation Committee.
And I'm Barry Castle, I'm the program administrator for the Community Preservation Committee.
Welcome.
And for the record, Mark Zemanian, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. Thank you for having us tonight, members of Intergovernmental and Mr. Moderator. I'm going to run the PowerPoint, so
Okay.
if I could, I'm going to let Michael do the talking. He's our treasurer. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, and I guess to steal some of the comments from the previous speaker, in my mind, this is somewhat of a boilerplate presentation as well, that every year we have a CPC budget. Here, there are numbers involved, and that's what we're gonna go through. We're gonna kind of run over, and it's pretty much the same format that we did with the committees last year and with town meeting. A quick snapshot of what we achieved, what our revenues and expenditures were in fiscal year 2023, which closed last June. And here's the lineup. We're gonna look at 2023 revenue and expenditures, a quick look at the projects in progress, where we stand on all the projects that have improved prior to from fiscal year 24 back. Couple schedules on debt, which are almost identical to the schedules we looked at last year, because there's been no new debt. There was two bonds that were issued at late June. So when the committees met last year, we had estimates in there. The actuals, I think, was slightly favorable to the estimates, and then we'll dig into the budget itself, starting with the authorized unissued debt service, and then the appropriations reservations, and the overall budget. So if we can go to the next slide, Mark. Fiscal 23 actual CPA revenue, and that's tough to read up on the screen. Basically, we got these numbers. They were filed by the town with the state, and we had a very good year in fiscal 23. We came in $554,000 higher than the prior year, which was much more than we expected. Enough so that when the committee reviewed it, when the Community Preservation Committee reviewed it, we pushed back on the town and said, hey, can you look at some of these things and make sure they're correct? And in particular, the collections from local surcharges went from $888,000 in fiscal year 2022 to $1,080,000. So it went up 21.7%, which is the biggest increase we've ever seen. We've never seen anything to that extent. I actually just spoke with the Director of Finance today, and the number is wrong. Should have been 970, which is more in line with where we thought it would be. It is what it is. We'll talk about how it impacted. It actually doesn't impact the budget, partly because we adjusted for that. Another line that stands out up on the screen there is the earnings on investment, which was up by $193,000 from under $8,000 to $200,000. That's thanks to the higher interest rates that we're seeing and paying on all of our other stuff. The town we were earning like 1/10 or 2/10% of interest on the balance of CPA funds. Well, that goes up to 4 or 5%, and boom, you start getting a lot of money. That's good news, because we'll see that carry probably into fiscal year 2024. Probably not much, hopefully not much longer than that, but if there's a benefit to higher interest rates in the economy, you do see it on the savings side. But overall, we still ended up with close to $500,000 more revenue than we were expecting. And I think every year when we present the budget, we talk about, we do it very conservatively. So we expect to be higher than budget, but this was even more so. Next page, Mark. The expenditures, the top section here, we spent $172,000 in fiscal year 2023. The numbers are highlighted here because, and I think you all know, we had some turnover in the accounting department. Bill Rowe left, and they had a consultant doing some of this. She got the numbers right, but put it into the wrong categories. So what I'm showing is the spending in the correct categories, because that's how we look at it project by project, and we roll it up to the categories. But the spending of $172,000 is correct. Below that, we have the debt service, which was $386,000, right on budget. It's pretty much, we know what that number is going to be because the bonds, as we'll see in a couple of pages. And again, the town reported it all under what's called other expenditures, which is typically what we've used for recreation. I've gone back in and broke it all out, and we'll figure that out for the town.
And if I could interrupt Michael for just a minute, I'd like this committee and all that are watching to keep in mind that we lost our town accountant on very short notice. And there was apparently a consulting firm that assisted with this. So this was not entirely in the hands of the town. There were little mistakes like these, as Michael has been explaining. It does not impact our overall budget. They're just, I think this shows our due diligence and how hard our treasurer works to ensure you're getting accurate information at town meeting. Okay?
As well as the relationship that we as a committee have with the town.
Right, that's another good point.
The back and forth, that, it's a joint effort. Some years, I think Bill Rowe actually presented the budget. A number of years, I've presented the budget. So, I mean, it really is a joint budget on both sides.
Collaboration.
Administrative expenses, we're allowed to set aside 5%. We spent only $30,853, well below, and actually below the prior year. But the prior year, we were very involved in running the COVID relief program as well as the housing trust program that we were trying to develop. So the bulk of that expense is sitting next to me here. All the great work that this guy does for us is incredible.
Can I ask you, stop 1 second?
Sure can.
Can people at home see this?
They should be able to.
Is everybody seeing this at home? Like Jeff, are you seeing this screen?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure. Okay, thank you.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay.
That's why I did it this way.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Next
ahead.
slide,
I'm sorry
Mark.
to
Yep,
interrupt
no,
you.
that's fine. And this is, again, just a rundown, and all this information is in the warrant book. We had provided it for everybody, and,
Okay.
I mean, this is just a list. There are 21 active projects, a couple others that I pulled off because they're pretty much done. And this just shows project by project what we were approved for. The $172,000 in the middle of the page there, it's not shown on the bottom on Mark. You gotta go roll up a little bit. You can see what we spent in fiscal year 2023. The next column, $152,000, is what we had spent up through January 2nd in fiscal year 2024. Not a lot. If you remember, we approved $2.3 million in projects last year. So there's a lot of behind the work going on that should start seeing some significant dollars getting spent. But the other thing this chart shows us off to the far right is that of the 21 projects that are still in some stage of progress, working on, most of them just started last year, we have $3 million of unspent funds that, presuming that all these projects go through to fruition, we'll probably spend something less than $3 million. We can't go over it, but history tells us we tend to underspend a little bit. But there's a lot of money out there that we need. Next schedule is the CPA long-term debt schedule. This is the schedule I stole right from Bill Rowe. Same schedule we use every year. There are 17 bonds that we have issued since the first bond for Glen Echo back in 2012. $4.2 million. At the end of fiscal year 2025, that balance will be down to $2,115,000. You can see on the chart, it's got the background information, when they were approved at town meeting, the life of the bond, the interest rate, the amount that was issued, as well as the projected balance at the end of fiscal year 2025. Some of them have been paid off, but left them on the schedule. It's an eye chart to look at, but again, it's in the book, so everybody will have and be able to look at it. No significant change on that schedule from what we had at town meeting last year. Just those bottom two bonds were updated. There's a breakdown by category, the open space, historic, just to show where the money is being spent, and in this case, where the bonds are going. Next slide, Mark. Next slide just shows how that debt is going to continue out through the year 2040, year by year going down the page. You can see the principal payments, the interest, the total payment, and the box highlighted in the middle is the 345, 298 that's in the current year's budget for long-term debt service. So, I mean, it's there more for checking. We don't need to talk the specific detail there. Next slide is the same information broken down by the category, showing the payments for the next 15 years or 12 years or so. Again, just the total payment, so you can see by category, the principal, interest, and total payments, just to kind of back it all up. One of the things we use this for in the committee is to show we're still paying a lot of debt, going back to Glen Echo. In a few years, some of that's going to start falling off, and we'll end up gaining back some of our borrowing capacity. And so we wanted to understand where it was. Next page, Mark, is the authorized but unissued debt service. There's 3 bonds that were authorized in prior year town meeting that have still not, the projects aren't totally complete, so at some point they'll be completed. We'll do a little bit more borrowing. We make a provision here that if that happens in fiscal year 2025, there'll be some interest coverage in the budget. In the middle of the page, you see the one project, to talk about 25 for a second, the one project that does involve some borrowing, we need to make a provision in case there's any interest that's needed in fiscal year 25 for that. Again, at the bottom of the page, it's just breaking it all out by category.
And basically, this is created in the event the town meeting approves all of our articles. We needed to show this in our budget.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the provisions, I think, that everybody knows now, we're required by the CPA legislation to spend so much money in each of those categories. And we'll talk about that when we get to the budget. But as a result, we tend to focus a lot of times on stuff by category. It just helps us make sure that we're going along. So now we get into some more eye charts, and I apologize for having to read it, but again, we provided all the detail that's in the book. Top half of this page is just that debt service broken out, those bonds that we saw earlier, showing the actual debt payment for fiscal year 25, in which fund it's coming out of, whether it's coming out of the open space reserve, the housing, the historic, or the undesignated fund. So again, it's the same $345,298. Take my word, you can't read it up there, but it's in the book. There's a line for the authorized but unissued. And then below that are the 7 new articles that are going, that we've recommended, that will each be presented and discussed by the various committees. And we do this just to show, again, which of the funds they're coming out of, whether it's coming out of open space, historic, undesignated, or housing. So it's just a way to help keep track of the books for the town, really, is we all know what's going into which accounts. And it's basically the same schedule we've used every year since we adopted the CPA. I added in lines to try to make it a little easier to read. It's as hard as it is to still read, and some totals at the bottom. But one of the key things here, and I probably should have highlighted this back, but we're showing that the ending fund balance at the end of fiscal year 2025 will be down to $4.7 million. I meant to mention this back on page, I think it was on there, page 4, when we looked at the expenditures. At the end of fiscal year 2023, we got about $7.8 million. And again, that's the $2.3 million of expenditures that were approved last year at town meeting, and there's $3.6 million worth. So you got a couple of years more revenue, but a lot more stuff coming out of it. So just trying to present an overall picture of what the funds are and what money is available, and that we can afford the projects that we've recommended. Obviously, you'll get much more detail from some of the folks in the room tonight. So then, next page, Mark, is the actual fiscal year 25 budget. Top of the page, we have CPA commitments and abatements, and that's really comes from a form they call the CP1 that gets filed with the town. And it's the running total that they present to the town, the first estimate of how much money we are going to collect in the local surcharge. So that's the commitments, and you can see it's at $980,000 for fiscal year '25, which is slightly up from the $971 in fiscal year '24, and the actual on that was $960 in fiscal year 2023. So again, a very conservative progression year over year. We typically beat this budget, which is, I think, better than coming in short, so. Bottom of the page really talks about the, in addition to the local surcharge, we can see the top line is the CPA local surcharge at $965, and I'll talk more about that in a second. The state reimbursement of $194, we get an estimate from the state. Just got a note today from CPA Coalition, kind of cautioning everybody that those numbers could be in tough shape with the budget. State usually gives us a very conservative number and then beats it by a lot, so maybe they're not going to beat it by a lot. I think it's still probably a reasonably good number for us, the 194. The investment.
The coalition was saying that it could drop to as little as 20%.
Which coincidentally is what it's based on, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we're comfortable at that number.
The investment income, we've historically carried $10,000, $15,000. As we just saw in fiscal year '23, at least for another year, I would expect that number will be very healthy. Because we're going to be getting more than the 1/10 and 0.2%, at least for the near future. So total income of $1,177,000. And then going across the page, you can see the reserves that we keep talking about, the open space, the historic, the community housing, and the undesignated fund. This is kind of telling us that top line next to the yellow is telling us we expect to be at about $7.6 million at the end of fiscal year '24. I think we'll be a little higher, but again, so that 7.6 is what's going to drop down to the 4.6 that we just talked about when all is said and done.
It's always upstate at 8 o'clock, the updates.
I know.
Can't stop.
I can't speak to the updating progress.
Yeah, just gotta let it go, it doesn't take long, yeah.
We'll let it go and go to the next page, which,
Yeah, hang on one sec.
Yeah,
There
I'm
we
ready
go.
now.
You ready?
okay, now this page takes what we just looked at, the top 2/3 here, and adds in the totals of the administrative expense, which is showing there at 4.99%. Something about if you go over 5%, you get penalized, so the town puts it in at 4.99. The reservations, we set aside 10% into each of the three reserves. That helps keep us on track with the legislation that requires you to put at least 10% into those categories. The budgeted annual reserve is just the difference coming back to the same $1,177,000. One other thing I meant to, the CPA surcharge line. That's the line that would have been affected by the budget. Typically, the last few years, we've budgeted the upcoming fiscal year at 95% of the prior year actual, which is the number that was overstated by $110,000. Because we had pushed back, we talked through it with the town, with Elizabeth, and we actually did it a little differently. We basically grew 2.5% a year from fiscal year '22 up to '25 to come up with the 965, which is slightly below what we achieved in fiscal year 2023. So we're still comfortable that it's a good number and the right way to go with the budget. Down below this, we've now added in that total line of the debt service. You can see the 388, which is the long-term debt service plus the authorized but unissued. I think a little further down the page, Mike.
Yeah. I was just looking for it.
Yeah. And then again, the total appropriations that we saw on another slide that were broken out, the 7 different lines. This is just the total to get us back to a single page, which is typically what we've put in the book, but we've done it with all those lines in it, which makes, if you think this is hard to read, think back to some of those charts. And that's it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're showing that I think we're very healthy with the revenues that we continue to achieve. We've got some ups and downs coming, I think, with the current fiscal year, but we still expect to be in a pretty decent shape through the end of fiscal year 2025, even assuming all of the projects get approved.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Barry or Mark, you have anything to add at this point?
I do not at this point,
Okay.
no.
I was just gonna say that, I think as Michael demonstrated, we try to be conservative in our budget, so we don't, end up with not enough money. We always try to reserve, less than we expect to get. And Michael's done the same this year, and we did, again, as he said, we did get a very high estimate, before we had the new finance director, and we called that out to them, and they went back and went over it and did find that it was too high. So we had it pegged that it shouldn't have been that high, and that's what turned out to be the case.
And my message to them is we wanted to come to town meeting and to the committees and present this as a joint effort. Just because I'm doing the presentation versus the town doing it, it's a joint effort that we've both worked on, we're all comfortable with, the whole committee. It's not my budget, it's the committee's.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chair, I believe the finance director was on the job for approximately 24 hours when we first contacted her.
And said, hey.
I need to give credit where credit's due. Michael has put in tremendous effort. The committee certainly has, as well as has Barry. But give Elizabeth credit. She did work with this under some pretty tight constraints. And I'm pleased that Michael today found out what the actuals were, and we're still under those actuals, so I'm very comfortable with the work that Michael, myself, Barry, and Elizabeth have done, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael, Barry, and Mark, for your presentation, appreciate it. Let me open the questions up to the committee. Why don't we start online? Anybody online of the committee members have any questions? Raise your hands or speak right up. Just identify yourself. I'll give you 20 seconds or so to make yourself known. All right, seeing no one wants to ask a question, anybody in-house here? Melissa or Frank?
I always have a question.
You have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
What's going on in Cape and Reynolds? Because I saw that it was still like 0, but I thought I saw some trees cut down.
So, Cape and Reynolds is in process. Rich Terry has been working with the Stanton Foundation that are committed to a grant to the town, which is what we were hoping for. Trees have been identified and some cut. So the area is now beginning the process of being cleared. It is, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Barry, it's out to bid again. And we anticipate seeing this being completed this year.
So was that, none of the money was spent stale, or?
So the way the CPC funds are, and I didn't know this either, but the town spends in deficit. So we will see those bills certainly by our next budget, but it's not
It's just not
it's
there.
not a, yeah, I'll give you a good example. We gave $200,000 to the railroad station 2 years ago, I think. And even though when we spoke with the town staff, they had said that, yeah, we spent 78,000 of that, we were showing a zero balance. So it's not that the money isn't being spent, it's that there's a tremendous lag time
Yeah, it's the
between.
bookkeeping.
Right, which is why we encumber that money instead of just, oh, look it, we have more money in our account, keep spending.
No, I got excited because I saw some trees come down.
Yeah, me too.
Some of that is also because these reports were dated the beginning of January.
Correct.
I've asked them to get me new reports so I can see how much of that additional 70 grand was spent in the last 2 months.
Right.
Oh, no, it's all good
So-
stuff. I saw,
Yeah, no,
I
it's
saw
just-
something happen. I just wanted to make sure
Oh, yeah, it's
it
happening.
was the
And
same thing.
What I told them is I wanted that for our meeting Wednesday, so hopefully I'll get that
Good.
tomorrow so that the committee can be on top of that. And then we'll be able to talk to it even though it's not gonna hit the schedules that went into the books, just, it's a timing issue.
Right, I understand. Anybody else from the committee? Okay, well, I would like to thank you very much for your
Public?
presentation. Oh, I should say the public, anybody from the public? Oh, can you identify yourself? I didn't see you.
I
over
see
there.
this guy over there sitting on the edge of his chair.
Anybody from the public?
I don't know who he is, though.
Can you identify yourself again, please, for those who don't know?
Still Peter Murphy, still precinct 2. Question I have is, I'm not sure if it was on page 5. Do your articles that you submit / get approved by town meeting, do they now fall under the sunset clause that was approved in last year's town meeting?
That's an excellent question. We actually have a policy that instates a sunset clause directly to the CPA. But yes, if we approve it this year, it'll fall under the sunset from the town's perspective.
Thank you.
So you have a double check there.
Yeah, we build it in, we make all the applicants sign a grant agreement
Right.
after we get town meeting approval. And we had a 3-year sunset clause in there, and I've actually been pushing, and we've had some conversation on certain projects maybe shouldn't have 3 years. Some of this stuff doesn't need to wait 3 years.
Yeah.
And I get tired of seeing it in the report, you know, month after month, year after year. Some of the older ones, and sometimes there's a reason. I mean, the Glen Echo acquisition goes all the way back because we're working still on the conservation restriction.
Right.
Okay, work is happening, we can't close it out because of that. But some of the other ones, I'd like to see us move a little quicker and get them done. The goal isn't for us to approve projects and say we're doing a great job. Goal is to get this stuff and spend in the community and make it a better place for all of us to live.
Okay, for those that don't understand the sunset clause, it was under $250,000. Work had to start within 3 years of the money being approved.
Yeah.
There was a 1-year extension granted to that. Anything over, and with that, if it didn't get done, they would have to come back before town meeting and get it reapproved again. Now, if it's over 250, it had a 5-year timeline on it, and the select board could extend it. Again, Glen Echo is a prime example of trying to get that moving. It involved many, many pieces in the puzzle, so, and again, I just wanted to explain the sunset
Yeah, no.
clause.
I think that mirrors very nicely to the grant agreement that we put together, because in addition, we asked the applicants to come in like every 6 months, and Perry's constantly chasing people. You know, come in and tell us what's going on. Why haven't we done this? What are we doing? So I think we must have had the same thought process, so that's a good thing.
And Peter, to follow up on that,
Quickly, I don't want.
that bylaw was approved some years ago, but it didn't end up standing as a bylaw. We kind of used those numbers that was in the original article as a baseline, if you will. The reason being is we never want to weaken our local statutes. We always want to strengthen them.
And just for clarification, that bylaw was told by the clerk that it has been approved by the Attorney General.
Great, good news, thank you.
Who did that bylaw, just to put it? All right.
Which article says?
Oh, yeah, let me just open up the public online. Anybody from the public online? Give you about 10 seconds, identify yourself. Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All gentlemen
Thank you.
there.
We'll be back.
Presentation, we'll be back. Thank you for your time. All right, next up is Article 19. Appropriate funds from fiscal 2025 operating budget to OPEB. Anybody like to take that one on?
Anybody else an expert in this? No?
You, Mark.
Mark, could you identify yourself for the record?
Mark Tisdale, Assistant Town Engineer, Assistant Town Manager, Town Engineer. Okay, so this article is not a boilerplate article, although it has been at town meeting a few times in the past. It could be a boilerplate article. Every year, when we get our audit complete, they always reference the OPEB fund. I think every town probably does, because no town has enough money in their OPEB fund to fund the liabilities associated with OPEB. For those of you that don't know what OPEB stands for, it's the Other Post-Employment Benefits Trust Fund. Probably still confused, right? Okay. So, I will read a paragraph. I actually printed out backup information from the DLS website, commonly asked questions. And I think the best way to describe what this OPEB fund is to just read the paragraph that defines it. All right? It says, what is an OPEB trust fund? An OPEB fund is a trust fund established by a governmental unit for the deposit of appropriations, gifts, grants, and other funds for the benefit of retired employees and their dependents, payment of required contributions by the governmental unit for the group health insurance benefits provided to the employees and their dependents after retirement, and reduction and elimination of the unfunded liability of the governmental unit for those benefits. The OPEB fund is an expendable trust fund subject to appropriation that is managed by a trustee or board of trustees. The assets of the trust are held solely to meet the current and future liabilities of the governmental unit for group health insurance benefits for the retirees and their dependents. All monies in the OPEB fund must be accounted for separately from other funds of the governmental unit and are not subject to the claims of any general creditor of the governmental unit.
That was clear.
I know how to read well, don't I? I had a feeling there would be nobody here to answer this, to this article, so I did my research.
Thank you.
So that's generally what it is. Right now, we pay for a lot of this stuff through our operating budget, but the government, the state comes up with a fancy calculation that says each town owns, has $100 million in liabilities of OPEB. Nobody can fund this thing. It's not us, it's statewide. But it's based on some calculation through the state that a lot of people have no idea how this calculation is actually done. But from our own internal standpoint and from an auditing standpoint, if it's in a report every year that we should be putting money into it, we should put money into it. This year, there's 10,000 being allocated into it from free cash. It could probably be 100,000, 200,000. But every year, it seems like the budgets are tight, so you just never, you prioritize other things, and then this is usually the last thing that's left. I don't really have much more to add than that. I'm not quite sure if I can answer any detailed questions you have, but if you do, I would be happy to get town council's response if I don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any questions from the committee from in-house here?
So this is
Can
paying
you
for.
identify yourself?
Oh,
just for
Frank
the-
Lyons, Precinct 8. So this is the fund that is tied to pensioners' insurance? Is that what that is?
So it's retirees group health insurance
Okay,
and
yeah.
their dependents.
Yeah, what I said, that's what I did.
Yeah, so the liabilities associated with that,
Okay.
whatever that may be.
Okay, yeah, I read that. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So,
That all?
That's all.
Any other questions?
Melissa Lynch, precinct 3. What did we put in last year?
I don't think we put anything last year, but I do recall an article.
I thought there was a conversation about at least maybe
Good.
that's how OPEB came back to me,
Yeah.
that there was a conversation of it showed good will or good intention that we didn't put some funds in there, so I feel like we wouldn't have, but I'm not.
We've put funds in it several times. The last time, I believe the number 50,000 sticking in my head. I don't.
180 sticking with me,
Maybe
Mark.
180.
I'll
So
look.
you think 180, he thinks 180.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like it could be 180, but.
I didn't know, I asked a question, so I don't know, I was just wondering what we have done historically.
See, listen.
And if there was a certain amount that positioned us in.
Nothing's sticking with me.
Yeah.
It's okay, it's all right, it's okay.
So, listen, I'm not a good poker player. When I'm not the expert on the article, I
That's
sound
okay.
like it, that I'm not the expert on the
Okay,
article.
it's okay.
No, it's a difficult article, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, you do.
Let me just open up to the committee online. Melissa, were you all done? Any
I'm
other-
good.
I'm sorry, okay. Anybody on the committee online has any questions from Mr. Mark Tisdale? Give you about 10 seconds to raise your hand. I see none. Okay, I'm gonna open up to the public in-house. Anybody from the public? Please, step up, identify yourself, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark Semanian, Precinct 1. Through you to Mark Tisdale. The state's aware we have an issue with OPEB. My question is, we haven't really invested any dollars into this over the last few years. Regardless of what the number is, it's been paltry in comparison to our budget. I don't think anybody would argue that. What kind of an impact will this have on us moving forward in the future? From a state level specifically, are they intending on holding towns or municipalities' feet to the fire on this? I mean, are we gonna find ourselves in a position 3, 4, 5 years down the line where they says, hey, you owe us 30 million for the next 10 years? You know, and I'm not sure you can answer that, but that is something that I think I'd like for town meeting.
Yeah, I think that's unclear, to be honest with you. I don't think there's anybody that can give that answer. But I will tell you that we need to make a better effort at funding this. We're actually in the process of creating new financial policies, certain things to do with free cash. OPEB will be included in those financial policies, I'm 100% sure of. So it has to be one of those boilerplate articles in my mind with a certain amount of funding in it to meet a goal, whatever that goal is, in a certain amount of time.
Yeah, because we were talking at one point with a former town manager of investing somewhere in the areas of 1% a year.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
Yep.
This isn't even a 10th of 1%, a 100th of 1%.
No, this is pretty much to say
This is,
we
yeah,
didn't do nothing.
this is a joke.
Exactly.
And I don't mean any disrespect to you know, with that statement, but this is clearly, we don't care, we're just putting a few dollars in there. Just wanna know that that's not gonna hurt us in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me open it to the public online. If anybody from the public is online, please identify yourself and ask a question. Give you about 10 seconds to identify yourself. All right, hearing no one speaking up, that concludes discussion with the public on that article. Thank you, Mark. Are you here for the next one?
I am.
Article 29, intersection improvements design, Plain Street and West Street intersection, Article 29.
This is the stuff I'm good at. All right, plain and list.
There are some handouts, sorry to interrupt. There's some handouts behind that desk if anybody needs them. Go ahead, Mark.
All right, Mark Tisdale, our Assistant Town Manager, Town Engineer. This article is to fund the intersection improvements with Plain and West Street intersection. It's for $55,000. This is design-only funds, okay? For those of you that are, if you have the backup information, it really kind of paints a picture of what we're really doing here. If you go to page 2, the left image is an aerial imagery of the intersection, and then the right view is a street view of the intersection. Does everybody have a copy of the backup information?
You're available over here, whoever.
I got some extra color copies if you like.
Color, wow.
Color, yep, color. Anybody want color? All right, this color. Anybody else need any?
I'll take it over today.
I don't want to waste the paper, so.
I'll take a color, sure. Sorry, I didn't have,
It sounds like hop
didn't have my
over there.
budget for color. Didn't have a budget.
Yeah, there you go. Right. That's great.
I'm just hitting home, that's
I
all.
know, right? I get it, I get it. Okay, so if you can, I'll just recap again. This article is for design funds only for improvements to the Plain and West Street intersection. If you flip to page number 3, you'll see an aerial image to the left, shot from the top. As you can see, you got West Street to the north, and Plain Street cuts across West Street. You'll see that there's a white hatched triangle in the middle that causes some confusion to people entering the intersection. It also allows some people to really. That was odd.
Yeah, just some
A little
echoing
little
there.
feedback
That's
there.
okay.
So the geometry of that intersection is a little confusing. I'll get a little more into that in a second. And then the image to the right is a Google view looking down Plain Street to that same triangle area that's striped and hatched. You can kind of see there's a truck that looks like it's in the middle of nowhere there, but it's actually stopped at a stop sign. I'll just read the project summary since I think it's worded pretty well. The proposed project consists of the reconstruction of Plain Street and West Street intersection in order to improve traffic operations and the traffic safety for all roadway users. The current geometry of the intersection is non-conventional, very wide and confusing for oncoming vehicles to recognize the proper lanes to enter and exit the intersection. Additionally, the intersection provides several operational points of conflict due to the geometric complexity and lane merges. Furthermore, there is no defined crosswalk at the intersection, which adds to the dangerous nature of this intersection. Currently, pedestrians have to walk 120 feet to get across that intersection. By tightening it up and making it more of a T-type intersection, you'll get it down to maybe about 80 feet, which is 2/3 the length, which is much safer for a pedestrian to get across. It's quicker. I mentioned that it's going to be a standard T-type intersection. We will simplify the intersection geometry, make the intersection safer for vehicles and pedestrians. We talked about shortening the pedestrian distance. Part of this, we will look at all options. It will not be a signalized intersection. It's not warranted to be a signalized intersection. We will look at a four-way stop and explore that opportunity. We don't feel that might be the proper way to address it up front, but we will look into it. There may be things like flashing signs and things of that nature, your flashing yellow signs that are implemented, things of that nature. But generally speaking, it's gonna be a geometric improvement to make this a standard T-type intersection like you see it on most roads. They get rid of that right turn lane from West Street onto Plain Street. If you think about it, if a car is flying down Plain Street as they do right now, they really travel fast. That little extra lane to the right allows cars not to really slow down on West Street to get on the Plain. So there's a lot of judgment on how fast cars are going, and you'll see accidents there. The police department has confirmed it. So by eliminating that dedicated lane to the right and teeing it up, it'll make it a lot safer. The last page kind of shows you just a conceptual plan of what we're thinking of doing. Again, it just tees it up. The big green area to the right currently is pavement. It will be loamed and seeded afterwards. It'll make the area look better. There'll be less pavement. There'll be less runoff from the intersection. It'll be much better. To the north, where you see the town of Stoughton land, it's a very wooded lot. That's part of the problem on West Street. If you're looking to the left on Plain, sight distance is an issue. So if trees are blocking your view of cars coming, that's an issue because your reaction time is skewed by that. So we'll be probably clearing some of that vegetation to give proper sight lines. And that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Mark Tisdale. Let me just send this to Mark Zemanian. I think for the next one, we can at least get it on the screen. All right, for the committee members in-house here, anybody have any questions to Mr. Tisdale on this article?
I do.
Sure. Melissa?
Melissa Lynch, Precinct 3. So how does an intersection get on the list of ones to address? Is there like a hierarchy of needs? Is there a master plan? Like how do we say this time around it's these two or whatever it might be?
Yep, that's a great question. I appreciate that. Years back, we did a priority plan with many different people. We prioritize intersections based on weighting factors, things of that nature. Went in front of the select board, they approved it. And if you look back at that plan, half the items are complete. We've been like getting traffic projects done around town
Next one would be,
pretty hefty over the last few years. As you can see at town meeting, we've had a lot of articles. We are now talking about state grants. We got a grant to do complete street prioritization plan. What that means is our traffic plan. They call it complete streets now because it takes into account all modes of transportation, pedestrians, bikes, and vehicles. So that can be intersections, it can be a roadway, adding a sidewalk on a roadway, things like that. So we literally just signed the contract, and you'll see public forums on that coming up. So we'll get our next wave adjusted. But to this point, things like this were in master plans in the old priority plan. So we're just tackling the low-hanging fruit at this point.
Just to finish that off, I just think it's important to see these things ticked off and those check marks going up so people see all the work in one kind of condensed location, and kind of see like we've been working on this for years. The master plan has been working, and you know, kudos to getting these things off the list. My second question is around, so I know you said the T-type, and we really weren't talking about a four-way stop, but I kind of get a little nervous about traveling down that road. You're almost creating the same issue of just kind of going onto West Street, going right, not really knowing when you're able to go, based upon the quickness of the traffic coming through. So I would hope that the four-way stop is looked at as something to consider here, just because the traffic pattern, there's a driver pattern of you go, I go, who came first to that location, versus it being I'm waiting there forever as cars fly by. I think that would be important to address in this location, because while you're addressing that right lane turn, if you're coming up Plain Street and taking a right onto West, you're having that same issue. You're coming down Plain. The only thing is you don't have that little curvature that doesn't have a stop sign. So I just would ask that be really looked at and thought about.
We're going to definitely look at the four-way stop, because you're not the only one that has vetted those concerns. Just for your exact reasons, the vehicles on Plain Street fly.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very hard to gauge you know, even if you have a hiccup with your car pressing the gas pedal, you can get into an accident
Sure.
if it doesn't go. So there may be other measures we can do too, to slow down cars as they approach the intersection on Plain Street. If you go further up Plain Street where the curve is, we've done some pretty
Yeah, the
cool stuff
pond.
up there
I've seen
to slow
the, yeah,
the dynamic
but
flashes.
then people like
so.
zoom. They speed up quite a bit. And just out of curiosity, so that turn on West Street, coming down West Street and turning onto Plain on the right, there's no stop sign there either, right? It's just a right turn and you just have to, that's
Yeah,
part of the challenge
yeah,
there?
that's
Like
the
that hasn't
challenge,
ever
yeah.
been
That's
just
part of it too.
a stopgap to kinda,
Well, you'd have two stop
mitigate.
signs on one approach, which is very unconventional. So, that's why
the confusion.
that lane is just very confusing and allows cars to just kind of speed up going on the Plain Street. As you know, because you sound like you're familiar with it, so.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, Melissa?
No, I'm good, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, I actually did.
Just identify yourself.
Yeah, Frank Lyons, precinct 8. Where's the 55,000 come from?
Engineer, there's a quote, that we got from the engineer to design it.
All right, but there's no grant or anything paying for that, right?
No.
That's to ask for a
No.
grant, or?
A grant wouldn't pay for something like this.
Okay.
Yeah. The grants that we've been talking about are millions of dollars.
Right.
That we've been getting, so we've got like, the Safe Routes to School, Route 138 for nine million, the Safe Routes to School was 5 million, Tosca Drive was another 5 million. So these grants that you go through and follow the state process, they're for bigger picture projects. Something like this is actually a good thing, because we could probably do it with a lot of our contracts that are already in place with contractors. It's mostly gonna be paving, curb work, striping, so it's gonna be probably a low-cost improvement for a big benefit.
Yeah, I was just curious on what the source was. Not, the amount, I'm not all that worried about. It's not-
Yeah, the source is, we're gonna be paying that from free cash, I believe.
Okay, any other questions, Frank?
Nope.
Okay, let me move on to the committee members online. Janai, I see you have your hand raised. Could you identify yourself, please?
John Muggleson, precinct 7. I can't tell from this picture, but I don't recall Plain Street having sidewalks. With this plan having a crosswalk, how effective is the crosswalk without the sidewalks? And would sidewalks be a part of the plan for this?
Yeah, so that's a good question. As you can see with the crosswalk, people do walk in that area, and they do cross the intersection, even though there's not sidewalks. They walk on the shoulders or on the edge of the street. So by providing the crosswalk, it could be a step in the right direction to plan for sidewalks in the future, if necessary. A sidewalk down Plain Street could be something we explore in the future, could be part of that complete street prioritization plan we were talking about. We also did a roadway safety audit with the Old Colony Planning Council that did mention the need for sidewalks. So although we're just focusing on this intersection, we are trying to plan for bigger things in the future for that corridor.
Janai, any other questions, Janai?
That's it.
All right, thank you, Janai. Anybody else online from the committee? Give you a couple seconds to raise your hands. Seeing none, open up to the public in-house here. Anybody? Anybody around here? Okay, well, Mr. Murphy? Are you too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cherry was it?
Oh. Yeah, anybody online? Janice? Let me go to Janice first. Janice, go ahead, committee member.
Bob, thank you. Hi, Janice Schneider, precinct 6. In terms of this intersection, how does this fit into intersection work with, oh, I'm blanking now, Tosca Drive?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Are you saying it's, one more time, could you repeat your question, Janice? We're not sure what the
We
question is.
have, I seem to recall that we've asked for intersection work, I believe it's Tosca Drive, and Route 27. How does this intersection fit on that list, or are they
Oh, the
two
list.
separate
Oh, I see what you're saying.
projects?
Okay.
I mean, I know they're separate projects, but how does this fit?
What,
into
you mean like the
priority?
ranking?
When
You
did-
are you looking for like ranking?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, the ranking.
Yeah, Tosca Drive, was obviously high on the list. Because that project, if you can believe it, we started working on that project probably about, sorry. We worked on that project started working on it 7 or 8 years ago with exploring different options, working with the state to get that funded on the TIP process, which is the Tram Station Improvement Program. As you can see at town meetings through the years, there's been several articles for that project. It's the town's responsibility to come up with the design for these larger projects, the costs. And if we go through the state process, the TIP process, and meet all their thresholds, you get the construction costs for nothing. So obviously, you say it costs us, I don't know, $700,000-800,000 for Tosca Drive to design it, right-of-way costs. We're getting about $5 million from the state for that project. That was high up on the list. That's why we started it years ago. There's another project on tonight that was always the highest intersection on the list in any study that you've read in town, the Canton and School Street intersection. But that was held off for a number of years because the South Coast Rail was going to come through our downtown, and the town manager at the time really wanted to have the MBTA provide mitigation for the impact to our downtown, and the Canton and School Street intersection was going to be one of those. Now that project went in a different route, and now you see Canton and School Street back on top of the list for an article tonight. And the good news is we actually are programmed on the 2028 TIP for that, which I really don't want to, I make it sound like it's easy, but it's very difficult to get these projects programmed on the TIP because you're competing with about 20 other communities for the same money. But we've been very successful with getting these on there. Projects like this, Janice, they're the lower, they were the lower priorities at that point in time. They were mentioned, I think, in several studies, these Y intersections. So we kind of pluck them as we go. You know, this is it's really not that expensive to address this intersection. Like I said, obviously $55,000 isn't a blink in the eye, but it's not $700,000 or $800,000 for design, and it's probably going to cost, I don't know, if I just took a dart and threw it at the board, it's going to be somewhere around maybe $300,000-400,000 to construct this, maybe less, maybe a little more, which is something we can probably do either with a future article, Chapter 90 funds, or something like that, and it won't impact the town like a $5 million article would.
That okay, Janice? You answer that question? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but no. What's
Okay.
going on with Tosca Drive that we've been working on for ages and ages? Have we made our way up? I'm sorry. I apologize to the room and the people online. I don't understand how that list works.
Yeah, okay, I get your question now. I thought
Well, I don't want to get into Tosca Drive.
Yeah.
Can you just answer that quickly?
I can answer it very quickly, yeah. So that project is now fully permitted, and there's been a contractor assigned by Mass DOT to build that project this upcoming summer, since construction's gonna start this upcoming summer out there. So that's the good news.
Fabulous. Thank you.
I wish I would've known that was where you're going with that.
No, I see these intersections on here now,
Yeah.
and I know that we've been looking at Tosca Drive, and I don't mean to derail the discussions at this intersection, but this stuff takes a long time to put together. That said, I think this is a great idea. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, no problem.
You okay, Janice? All set?
I'm good.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you for your question, Janice. Okay, back to the public here. Mr. Murphy?
Peter Murphy, still precinct 2. Couple of questions I have, Mark. One is first of all, was this a petitioned article or something that was brought about by the engineering department?
This was something that was on a plan through the town, several plans. It's on the capital plan. It was brought forward by the engineering department. Yes, the select board as you can tell, is a very similar intersection to the one that was at town meeting last year. So we call them Y intersections with these striped hatched areas. They're very confusing. So this would be our second priority Y intersection. Last year was Pine and Pleasant Street, which you're all familiar with. There was an article at town meeting for that.
Okay. The other question I see here is, you only have one crosswalk, and here it is, Why not 4 crosswalks? I mean, and it's a
That's a
case,
great question. It is.
you forget the paint out there,
Right. So if you can scroll up a little bit, Mark,
Sure.
just so I can see the text at the bottom of the screen. Okay.
That was it.
So right there, where it says concept design, in the engineering world, it's like a sketch. It's like
Okay.
and I make sure I put that on there because there've been times at town meeting where I put a plan like this on there and they think that thing's fully designed. No, we're asking for funds to hire a professional traffic engineer to design this. And they're gonna look at things exactly like that.
right? And then the next question I have is the fact that where's the nearest school bus stop in relationship to this intersection?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Probably everywhere.
It's within a quarter of a mile in either direction from what, I don't use that
I don't-
street for school bus, but I've seen children lined up there in the very early morning, all along Plain, within a quarter of a mile.
So my concern would be crosswalks for the students, depending upon where the school bus stop is, something to be looked at.
Yeah, that's a good comment, Peter.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Zemanian?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Mark Zemanian, Precinct 1, through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mark. I understand this is design. One of the things that I've noticed is there are a lot of people who use this as a biking area. It's one of the prettier areas in our town. Can you have whoever's designing this, can you have them consider, and I also get that it's tight, but can you have them consider some sort of roadway signage, letting cars know you're sharing this road with pedestrians and bicyclists? Second question is, given that this is part of our scenic road area, can we set back but include some unique trees in that area that is now gonna be green? Obviously set back a bit so they're not blocking viewpoints as they get older and more mature. But I think this is an excellent opportunity to reclaim some asphalt, so I thank you for listening.
Thanks for the question, Mark, appreciate that. Everything we design now from a traffic standpoint takes into account bikes. We are a complete street community. We won an award in 2016 as being the 9th best complete street community. So we take pride in that. So that's why you see a lot of those bike lanes you see in town going through the downtown. People always, I've heard comments like, why are we having bike lanes through downtown? It's because we have to. You have to treat bikes like you treat cars these days, and that's why you see them in Boston now, and that's pretty common in Boston. And it's just one of those things we're gonna have to get used to, and educate the public on. So yes, we would certainly accommodate bikes. There'd probably be signs, there'd probably be shoulders, with the sharrow on it, they call it the bike symbols on the ground, sharrows. And then, what was the second part of your question?
Just that if you would
Trees.
consider bringing back some trees in that area.
Yeah.
Something unique perhaps that fits the nature of this town.
So the scope of this article is a traffic design, but
Understood.
I can't see why that would be a bad idea to look at that green area.
Yeah, I mean, you're just looking at
dress it
a
up
giant
bit.
green lump
Right.
there. Let's
Right.
put some greenery
So
up there.
that'll be something we'll take a look at, as part of the design.
Thank you.
Jerry? Please rise and state your name.
Thank you, Bob. Jerry McDonald, Precinct 4 Town Meeting Rep, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. I'm very much in favor of this plan. It's a somewhat dangerous intersection down there for a lot of folks. I particularly ride there probably twice a week during the summer, so I'm very familiar with getting out there. And when you're heading down West Street towards either crossing West Street or turning left, you're parked out in the middle of nowhere's land on your bike, waiting for traffic to let you through. So tightening up the intersection will definitely, I think, make it a lot safer. I've seen people come down Plain Street from Morton Street, and they're basically in the wrong lane on West Street when they stop down West Street, because they just zip right across. So it's very fast. I think anything you can do to kind of slow it down. You got stop signs now on West Street, both ways. I've been that way forever. I would be in favor of leaving it like that. I'm personally not in favor of four-way stop, because I don't think it's necessary out in that area of town. It is busy at times, and it can be fast, but there's not a tremendous volume of traffic on West Street to warrant more stop signs on Plain Street, basically, would be my opinion. And I think also four-way stops can just almost be as bad because people don't know how to negotiate them time-wise or in order, who goes first, who goes next, and people ignore half the normal conventions anyways. So I'd be in favor of leaving the stop signs as is, and doing this improvement. You can always go back and look at it again in the future for stop signs. That would be very easy to do, I would think. And I think, you know, you don't have sidewalks out there. I don't think there's any sidewalks near there. So, you know, crosswalks, yeah. Crosswalks and markings for crosswalks are a good point because it really is for the cars to know that people are crossing, not so much for the people that are crossing. But again, I thank Mark for bringing this forward, and I think it would be an improvement. In the greenery space, I agree with Mr. Zemanian that, you know, I guess one question I would have is who's gonna maintain that? Because is that gonna be the property owner in the corner, or is that gonna be the town? And if so, it should be low maintenance.
That would definitely be the town.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a town area right there.
Right.
Anybody, thank you, Jerry. Anybody else from the public here in the room? Anybody online from the public? Give you a couple of seconds to identify yourselves. I don't see anybody. I do have a quick question, Bob Mullen. Sure. As a member of the public, obviously that's a fast intersection, and we have lots of, as you know, a lot of fast intersections. What I like to see other towns are doing is a lot of the radar speed signs are being put up.
Yes.
And they work as long as you put the speed limit up there and the radar detector underneath. They do work. I know I slow down when I see them because they're always flashing at me, you know? Not that I'm speeding, but I'm just close, I'm right there at the line, man.
If you're
Right
within
at
the
the line.
speed limit, you get a happy face.
Well, I'm right on the edge, it goes back and forth on me, you know? Probably because my car speedometer is not working too well. So.
I agree with you. Most people slow down. Some
They
people
work.
like
And
to
they're
speed
cheap.
up. But,
They're only-
you know, so-
I did
but-
some research on them, they're less than $5,000 a lot.
Yeah, so that's part of this.
It should be but on each way though, you can't just put one, you gotta put one on each direction.
Well, because you and I are not traffic engineers, we're gonna
Right.
leave that up to them.
Well, they're not doing a great job in our town, I have to say that.
Really?
I see
Really?
some of them just one sign, I mean, on, just for example, on, Walnut Street, they finally have the second one up.
There's
There's two
actually
there.
one on Plain Street.
Yeah, there's one, but, you know, what I mean,
One side.
one side only,
Two unpleasant.
just
Pleasant,
recently
yeah.
two on Pleasant.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't wanna divert to other
yeah.
Yeah,
locations, but you gotta have two, one on each side.
I
One in
agree.
each direction, and you have to
And-
have the speed limit sign on it, because some, in the beginning,
I
they
think the one
weren't.
you're talking about is actually, is it on a utility pole?
It
on
might
Walnut
be, I'm
Street?
not sure,
Temporary
probably.
one. Mark
That's a
from the
temporary
police.
one the police
Yeah.
department has. That's
Okay.
not something that we've permanently planned for.
Okay.
You always have one in each direction. So,
Okay. And now, is this considered a
Smiley face.
dangerous,
I want the smiley face.
is
I
this
like-
considered a dangerous intersection?
according to the public and to the police department, yeah. it's
Okay, so you
warranted.
got this on the list from police reports?
It's recommended by the police department.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so
Thank
we've
you.
had conversations with Rich Brown was here and.
Okay,
Donna.
just curious how it
Yeah.
works, okay.
Yeah.
'Cause you know, schools, what's it, Lincoln and,
Pleasant.
Pleasant's
Lincoln
still
and Pleasant.
dangerous.
Yeah, that's another really
Accidents
bad.
every couple of weeks, you know.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
need some of these radar signs out there too. I'm willing to make a donation to the town.
so, listen, I like the feedback, I actually enjoy,
Right.
this is the stuff we enjoy. We want the feedback, we want the plan that the community wants moving forward, that's why we
Right.
apply for the grant for the complete streets.
Okay.
Things like this are some of the low-hanging fruits that we just wanna cross off the list.
No, it's
They're
a
easy, they're
nice
easy
plan,
to address,
nice concept.
you know.
Jerry, did you have another
Yeah,
question?
it was mentioned earlier that when you come down West Street from the southeast west heading towards Plain Street, there's really no stop sign because there's no place for the stop sign. So this would allow, you know, the stop signs to be in the right area so people can see them. I just wanna say, I'm not in favor of the blinking stop signs.
Yeah.
I don't mind an overhead light that blinks yellow and blinks red because they're up high, but if I live on Morton Street next to the blinking red stop sign, that's like right outside somebody's window, I'd be really annoyed. So that's, just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Can I
No
just have
blinking
one,
red
just
signs.
one quick
Sure,
point?
go ahead.
So, just dating back to the question that I had, like, is there the list and the priority list and what's being done? Cause I wouldn't have known that SPD is putting that up on Walnut Street as a stopgap. But if it was somewhere that I could look at to say, this is a stopgap, this is in design, this has moved into these 3 different projects because of TIP funding, whatever the funding was, it's helpful to see the bigger picture of what we've been doing and what is in process versus trying to piece it together like we've been talking about Tosca Drive forever, or why isn't it on both sides? So I just offer that as just a suggestion of like,
Yeah.
could we see that type of
Yeah.
overarching, document type?
We have those kind of documents available.
Okay.
We've had a lot of public meetings in front of the select board, in front of town meeting. We have our old priority plan we have on the website. We can update that to say which ones are completed and not completed. The town manager reports that are done every 2.5 months that are posted on the website for every department has all the projects on it, and we usually, as an engineering department, break out the traffic projects, where they are in the status, what we've done since the last report was generated, things like that. So the documentation's out there. You probably just need to be directed to where to find it. It might not be easy to find.
Well, and I just don't know if it drops off where the memories are shorter versus seeing the longer picture of if it goes over a number of years.
Yeah.
Actually seeing those progressions and not just feeling like, oh, we keep talking about certain intersections consistently. So even keeping those on for a longer period of time, more than just the 2-month update, and then, yeah, we close the project plan moves on. So having those live somewhere to look up.
So in those reports I'm talking about,
Yeah.
a lot of these projects have been on those same reports for years. Like this Tosca Drive intersection. This has been going on for years.
So that's what I
if it's an
mean.
ongoing project, it's always on the list. And if it met like another milestone, we'll update whatever it says, on the list. So
I'll have to
I do like your comment though. I think pulling the whole older plan together and maybe updating it of what's completed, what's not completed in a condensed, simple, like 1 or 2 page form.
Yeah.
Would benefit the public.
Yeah.
We can do that, and I like the idea.
Okay, great. I think that concludes this article. Thank you, Mark, Melissa, Jerry, Mark, Peter Murphy, and everybody else. All right, can we move on to Article 30, another intersection? Article 30 is Canton and School Street intersection improvements design. Are you here for that, Mark?
I am. I am. Does anybody need color copies?
Sure.
I think we're gonna have it on the screen too.
Color?
There we go.
I'll save these for town meeting.
I do the same here.
Anything else? Okay. Okay, Mark Tisdale, Assistant Town Manager, Town Engineer. This article's for improvements, design to Canton and School Street intersection, for $225,000. This particular intersection, a little history. I think everybody's familiar with the issues of Canton and School Street intersection, but I'll recap them in a second. This was that project that I mentioned that it was always at the top of the list. It's actually been on state 200, the top 200 ranked dangerous intersections in the state for various years. It's always been the top priority from what I gather from the town. It's been every plan, every master plan, every study you've seen out there. It's a very dangerous, intersection for pretty much sight distance issues. It's very similar to the intersection we just talked about. People speed on Canton Street, and then you're stopped on School Street, and then you got sight distance issues, and just because of the speed of people on Canton and coming out, there's accidents that happen there all the time. Now that the South Coast Rail project took a different route, this came back to the top of the priority list. Through the select board, they've prioritized as street commissioners, and rightfully so. It's a intersection that needs to be addressed. If you remember, about 2 or 3 years ago, there was some ARPA funds that came available to the town, and they were looking for projects, good projects. The town manager at that time, and the select board at that time, voted $400,000 for the design of this intersection, which is about the going rate for a signalized intersection, around $400,000 or $500,000. So we've initiated design, we're already well into this design, of this intersection. We've gone through the Mass DOT, initial permitting stages, they've had comments. One of their comments, and it's a big comment, but it's a good comment, is the Cushing Street intersection is so close to the Canton School Street intersection, right? Then you got the train tracks, right? So, in order to make everything safe and not to have cars stop in the train tracks in between Cushing and Canton School Street, we're gonna have to gate that we're gonna have to put upgraded gates at the train tracks, and we're gonna have to coordinate a new signal at Cushing Street. That's a new thing. A new signalized intersection at Cushing Street with Canton and School Street. So everything works together and everything's safe. So nobody gets caught between the train tracks, the queue isn't impacted at all. With that said, because of that change, which I think is a good change, to be honest with you, there's an amendment to this project from a design standpoint. So the amendment's for about I've got the backup in here, about $180,000. And because I know how this works, and going through the DOT project process, which you'd like to think is pretty simplistic, it isn't. There's a lot of changes that occur as you're going through this, as you could see with various articles for Tosca Drive through the years. That I built in a buffer in there, let's call it, from the 180 to the 225. In case there's a change order for an unforeseen design change, I don't have to wait a year and delay our project. I can just encumber the money that's sitting in the article. I hope I don't have to touch the extra money and it goes back to the town, but it's sitting there, gives me another tool in my toolbox to keep the project moving forward. In the big picture, something like Tosca Drive, which is a very, pretty decent sized project, that one was probably cost the town, I'd have to add up the various articles, but probably around $700,000 to $800,000 in design articles. I'm not saying the opera funds couldn't have been used for anything else, because they probably could have, but I think the money was well spent for this. But net spending to the town, borrowing wise, would be $225,000 for this intersection, which is a great deal for this having two signalized intersections. We've done a lot of networking with our legislators and our Old Colony Planning Council. This project is planned now, is programmed on the 2028 tip for about $5 million. I don't know I don't know the exact cost, but about $5 million.
Mark, could you just let Mark, let him know where you are?
Yeah, I'm sort of just shooting
That's
from the hip
okay,
here.
okay.
So I'm kind of just hitting some of the key points. I can go through the PowerPoint page by page. Yeah, so you're at the third page there. So if you go back up one page, Mark, just for the public so they can see, people who aren't familiar with this intersection, the issues with the intersection is sight distance that we just explained. The intersection geometry, there's actually 5 roads that come into that intersection at weird angles. There's vague traffic control, there's queuing to the active train tracks that we just talked about. The truck traffic's a concern. There's a cut through one of the roads to go to some industrial properties in the back. There's poor access management. Obviously, there's vehicle speeding that we talked about on Canton Street. Utility pole locations, as you can see, right on the edge of the street there, right on the edge of the radius where you turn. And there's the lack of, as we stated earlier, pedestrian and bike accommodations in the intersection. So it is not a complete street area at all. We're looking to improve all those issues with this project. We believe a signalized intersection will be the best fit for this intersection, along with all those other issues we just talked about. Those will be addressed as part of the design. Next slide. This is just a chart. The most important thing, it tells you about collisions. The state average for collisions their average for, if you're below their average, you're not considered a high crash intersection. Their average is 0.58 vehicles per crashes per million vehicles in the intersection, entering the intersection. We're at 2.51, so we're about 4 times their average. It meets the checkbox in every category possible to be our highest priority intersection. Next slide. A lot of this I just explained to you. I'll go through it again. Next slide. And this is just the aerial imagery of the intersection. At the time we did this image, now it will actually extend, the project limits will extend back to just to where Cushing Street is, across the train tracks. So you'll see that pretty much, that's the area. So the project area will accommodate bikes, so we'll have all the stuff you were talking about, Mike, Mark. The signs, the bike lanes, things of that nature. There's another slide, or is that the last one?
Just the,
This is the quote. If you wanna just scroll up real quick, keep on going. Keep on going. This is all legal stuff for contracts. Keep on going. There's one sheet I'm looking to hit here. Keep on going. Yeah, right
That's
here.
the one you're looking for,
Yep,
right?
yep, that's the one. So you can see the, scroll up a little bit more. One bit, yep, there you go. So you can see, the funds in the agreement were $351,000. There's actually a change on top of that for a different, consultant to add up to the exact amount of the opera funds. Amendment number 1, as you can see, what we're asking for tonight pretty much is $187,380. And I have it at 225 to give me a little bit of buffer there with, in case there's any change orders for design. And you'll see the total project, the project design to the right of 538,690, based on Mass DOT's calculations. And that's about it. The other stuff that surrounds that document, you can feel free to read it, but it's pretty boring. The contracts through DOT. So. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, for your presentation. All right, to the committee members in-house, anybody have a question or questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're asking
Name
for.
again, one more
Oh,
time, I'm sorry.
sorry.
We'll eventually catch
I
up.
know, I'll get it. I soon, well, maybe not, but Frank Lyons, Precinct 8. So you're asking for 225,000 today,
Yep.
and where is that coming from?
That would be borrowing.
That would be borrowed, so that would not be against free cash. The 50,000 would be free cash.
Right. We're proposing it as of today for borrowing. The finance committee, as you all know, are in their hearings right now, so their motion will determine where we pull the money from.
Yeah, because just, tying into that theme, it doesn't tie into this directly, all right, but there's a crisis in the school budget, all right, and they may need to reconsider some of the things that's free cash. So I'm really interested in what the source is, because all these are good things.
Yep.
All right, it definitely has to be done. But Peter, you're worried about, bus stops? Well, that might be a less worry, because they cut all the late buses. All right, so, everybody, when you ask, I'm gonna be
Okay,
interested.
yeah,
Okay.
let's not go too far down
Okay,
that road.
yeah, no,
But
that's,
thank you for the
I'm
input.
interested on the funding source.
Right.
All right, that's it.
Well, thank you, Frank. Melissa?
Melissa Lynch, Precinct 3. So I'm looking here in Cushing Street. It doesn't look to go all the way up to Cushing Street in the last page, the conceptual design. Are you saying that they'll draw this up further? I'm asking because Cushing Street is also a nightmare to get out of. So does it go right up to the train station before you cross over, or does it encompass after that where you're handling Cushing as well?
So the design will determine exactly where that line's drawn, but it's going to go up through Cushing Street, probably a little beyond 100, 200 feet past.
Towards Rose Street
Yeah,
as well?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just it didn't look like even this rough was covering that part of it,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to be
It's an
clear.
older version, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right,
Yeah.
just something, and then safe routes to school, is that going to help this at all with the bike paths or anything?
This is funded through a different program through the
Okay,
state, but
okay.
again, every project through the state has to accommodate the schools, pedestrians, bicyclists,
Yeah.
in that area.
No, I get that part, I just
Yeah.
didn't know because of its proximity right into a school zone, high school and the middle school, if there would be
Yeah,
some
they didn't fund it through the
opportunity
Safe Routes to School project.
Anything else, Melissa?
Yep.
Okay, thank you both. All right, let's go over to the online committee members. Anybody from online? The internet here?
I appreciate
Just raise your hand. I'll give you 10 seconds or so. All right, seeing none, I'm gonna open it to the public in-house here. Anybody from the public? Anybody else? No, I'm sorry. Peter Murphy, did you? Sorry, my apologies.
That's not nice.
I know.
Peter Murphy, Precinct 2. Just a real quick question. Seeing that you're gonna be passing over the railroad tracks, do you have to get the MBTA to buy in on that?
Yeah, we've already had on-site meetings with MBTA. They've been heavily involved in this process.
Are they in agreement with this process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else? Good question.
That's it.
Okay, very good. Okay, sure. Identify yourself, please.
Mark Semanian, Precinct 1. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mark. Quick question, we're going up to Cushing because of the signaling for the train. Further up on Canton at the end there, we have an additional issue where there's no gating and no ability for cars not to get stuck in that area. I know this project isn't part of that, but is that being considered where you're creating a four-way lighting situation here? How does that affect those coming over that track? Because you know as well as I do, you're watching it from this building.
Yep.
I'm sitting out there in this half the time, often cutting through the railroad
Yeah.
station. But you see the point, we could end up creating an unintended consequence, so.
So right now, again, you always ask very good questions. That
Because
I-
I've experienced it more than
and I appreciate
once.
because those questions could come up again, and I like to have them early on in the process. We have explored that. Our engineers have explored a queuing analysis. Again, it's theoretical based on the traffic the way it is now and how far cars queue. They will not queue anywhere near those train tracks.
Out amongst ourselves, they're obviously very, very busy. We know the breadth of issues that they have to work with. And then climate change, quite frankly, is an incredibly challenging issue with respect to both town operations and, quite frankly, the whole purpose of the climate change is the entire community. It's not just the town operations, the town vehicle fleet. It's sort of getting the entire community on a place with a plan where we are lowering greenhouse gas emissions. And also, unfortunately, because there's already too many greenhouse gas emissions, that we're trying to prepare as best we can for emergency situations, for extreme weather events, which are happening all over the globe in the United States. I like to give the example of Leominster last summer, it was September, had a terrible flood, and then FEMA came in and said, sorry, we're not helping you out. They had a terrible flood last summer in Montpelier, Vermont. Obviously, there's wildfires going on in Texas now. I mean, there's things that are, very, very dramatic. So I think it's really quite necessary to have the expert consultant advice. I feel like we can, as a community, because everybody has been very positive as far as the town officials and the school officials, I think we can really, working together, accomplish something and move the town forward and join some of our other towns who are engaged in the same process, and including Canton is engaged in this process right now, as is Milton. So I'd be happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Molly. All right, open it up to the committee members in-house first. Anybody from the committee?
Yeah, Frank Lyons, Precinct 8. Yeah, how much are you asking for, and where would the money come from?
So according to the way the article is written, the money would come from free cash, a maximum of $100,000, and whether you get to that maximum or not depends on whether we get some grant funding. We have a pending application with MAPC, which has said you're kind of still in the queue, the waiting queue, but you really need to go to EEA to get a grant. So the EEA grant application process won't even come out until the end of March. We are on, the Climate Action Plan Committee is supposed to have its final report by, let's say, May or June of 2025. We won't know for months after that whether we're going to get the EEA grant. Quite frankly, I think these agencies are stretched because a lot of communities are doing this now. The EEA grant an entire year ago was in the range of $50,000, but also required a matching portion from the municipality. So again, this $100,000 could shrink if we do get an EEA grant. And if we don't, that's about the figure that we need. And again, it is a cap, and this would go out for the procurement process, they would be involved in selecting the most qualified engineering firm to work on this with us.
Okay, thank you, Molly. Okay, you good? Melissa?
I think I'm good.
Okay, to committee members online, anybody have a question to Molly regarding this article? Give you a couple of seconds to raise your hand. I see none. Public in-house here? Anybody from the public? Online, anybody from the public? I don't see anybody. So that concludes this article, Molly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your patience again.
I'll just collect anything that I handed out.
Yeah, here you go. All right, next up is, well, that's our final article. Article 52, sidewalks on Turnpike Street from Central Street to Park Street, design, and it's petition article by Peter Murphy.
Make it pretty quick, Peter.
Yeah, I want to say to the committee members, I'm hoping we can still maybe vote tonight, if you have your patience, if you can hang in there.
I got no place to be.
Okay, to the members online.
I just retired.
Well, I mean, everybody has a place to be.
Yeah, well, yeah,
I
my
don't
wife,
want to
my
sound
wife is
funny,
probably
Just
gonna
looking
talk to
for
me
it
about
online.
that, but,
Yeah,
but it's on camera, she knows where I am.
okay, okay. All right, Article 52, Mr. Murphy, would you introduce yourself?
Sure, sure will.
And your presentation. And thank you for being patient. I know it's been a long evening.
Peter Murphy, Precinct 2. I'll give you a short version of this.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Over the years, traffic has increased on Turnpike Street. Numerous individuals have come before the select board asking for attention to address this roadway. Police at times have patrolled and enforced the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. Chapman Road, Peters Drive were made one-ways with truck exclusion roads. When the Kia came in, the small portion of Turnpike Street, north of Central, only got sidewalks in the residential area. In December of 2022, I walked Turnpike Street and the surrounding streets to complete a petition for sidewalks. Unfortunately, I missed the insertion deadline. When brought before the select board in January for the insertion, I was denied. The select board members favored the article, but the rules are the rules as far as making the deadline for town meeting. Since that time, I came across the process for requesting sidewalks to be constructed from the engineering department. That was completed, submitted on October 5th, 2023. As a result of that, engineering was able to get a quote from Greenman and Peterson Incorporated for $1,400,000 and 1,040. Let me
You
do
wanna
this
try that
again.
number again?
Yeah, this is $1,401,444.
Want me to read that for you?
Here, read it. It's
$1,401,000.
Okay,
yeah,
444.
444.
yeah.
Let's,
No, 105 million, right,
Yeah.
basically. To evaluate, design, prepare for requesting state and federal grants. With this quote, I was able to edit the petition article and resubmit in time for this year's annual town meeting. All right, which slide are you on?
What slide would you like them on?
Yeah, what do we want?
Yeah,
You can-
but that basically,
There's one,
there's one,
two,
two,
three.
all right, three.
That good?
Okay, on a daily basis, there's an average of 5,364 vehicles travel on Turnpike Street. Several school bus routes with multiple bus stops on Turnpike Street. Students crossing the street and standing in the street at intersections while waiting for the bus. Turnpike Street is heavily traveled with cars, box trucks, 25,000 pounds gross weight, 53-foot-long semi-trailer trucks, 10-wheel dump trucks loaded with asphalt. Pedestrians and joggers need to be mindful of the traffic at speeds in excess of 30 miles per hour. Slide 4. Traffic has increased over the years. Turnpike Street has become a known bypass for Route 24 during rush hour, especially if there's an accident on 24. With IKEA, Costco, Jordan Furniture, Home Depot being the large draws accessing the back entrance off of Turnpike Street. Amazon with 53-foot-long trailer trucks holding parking lot approximately 75 trailers on Maple Street. Semi-tractor trailers going to Campanelli Parkway on the other Amazon warehouse. Just recently approved distribution center with 3 buildings, total 168 loading docks with 400 plus employees, parking spaces utilizing Turnpike Street, and large trucks entering on Page Street. Franklin Sporting Goods Warehouse added to their building. Electrical Wholesalers of New England Warehouse. Intensity Spray Foam Incorporated. Bob's Furniture Warehouse and delivery trucks. Increased use in emergency ambulance and fire trucks. Slide 5. Accident at Turnpike Street and Central Street have increased as well. Next slide, please. The benefits: getting pedestrians out of travel lanes, giving students a safe passageway to and from bus stops. This is a critical since peak travel times for students and traffic is from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. Allow joggers not to worry about cars and large trucks doing 30 miles an hour plus. With line striping, added bike travel lanes with current width of paved street is 27 feet. Travel lanes is 24 feet. Dirt buffers on both sides range from 4 to 8 feet on each side. This section of Turnpike Street has an easement of 60 feet from Central Street all the way down to Park Street. Improving the quality of life environment for the abutters surrounding the neighbors of Turnpike Street. Able to seek, without this money here, you're able to seek state and federal funding for sidewalk construction, and design work must be completed by the town first. Next slide. Road safety audit. They performed a road safety audit from Park Street at Turnpike Street, including Campanelli Parkway and surrounding area. 2019 town meeting warrant, Article 35, approved $375,000 for this study. This was prepared under Mass DOT contract 108210 through the Old Colony Metropolitan Planning Organization, fiscal year 220 Unified Planning Work Program. Okay, next slide. Okay. The final date of this audit was October 28, 2019. The road safety audit participating audit team members were listed here below, actually, there. The Stoughton Police Department, comprising the Stoughton Police, Residents, Planning, Engineering, DPW, Mass DOT, OCPC. Next slide, please. The traffic count came from that study was 5,364 vehicles. That was an average traffic count. Next slide. One of the other things that Stoughton intersection improvements at Route 27 Park Street and Turnpike Street, Mass DOT project 613277. The important part of this slide here is they mentioned about new sidewalks along the northwest side of Turnpike Street and share use path along the southeast side up to Campanelli Parkway. That was an estimated cost of $3 million.
You can say 3.2 million.
3.2 million, okay, we'll make it short. And this project is in preliminary design phase. Same thing with the road safety audit, Park Street, Turnpike to Park Street at Turnpike Street, including Campanelli Parkway surrounding area, Town of Stoughton prepared by Old Colony. Consider sidewalk improvements, including extending existing sidewalks and adding sidewalk from Park Street to Campanelli Parkway. Next slide. When they did the Park Street Sewer Extension Project, presented to the Finance Committee March 2019, first item on that was to appropriate funds to design 2019 annual town meeting. That was for $800,000. If you look at the bottom line there, provide traffic and pedestrian safety improvements for surrounding area. Next slide, please. Okay. The annual state awards, Chapter 90 funding of excuse me, let me back up. Annually, the state awards Chapter 90 funding. Of the 8-year average, it was $771,000. 1 year they gave us $1.1 million. Don't know why they did it that year. Actually, if you look at this slide here, you can see the big trucks barreling down that street. Picture yourself, your family walking down there with trucks like this coming at you. Okay, next. I'll wrap this up now. Keep in mind when considering this article, Turnpike Street is a thickly settled residential area with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour. Several school bus routes with multiple bus stops. Students must walk and cross along Turnpike Street, then stand in the roadway. Joggers, walkers, also people walking their dogs while in the roadway. Again, we get back to the average number of vehicles is 5,364 vehicles traveling the road every day. Adding to traffic in the near future is the recently approved 3-building, 168 loading docks distribution center with 400 employees. And then the goal of the Campanelli Industrial Sewer Project is to increase the growth in the area, leading to increase in traffic flow in the area. Over the years, we have been told that all these additions will bring millions and millions of dollars to the town. What was not mentioned is the price to the Turnpike residents, the quality of life would be paying with the disregard to traffic, noise, safety to walkers, joggers, and children in the area. That's all I got.
Thank you very much, Peter Murphy. Okay, for the committee members, any questions?
Yep, Frank Lyons, Precinct 8. So it's, what, $1.4 million and something?
Right.
And what would be the source?
That would have to be a borrowing article.
Be a borrowing article, so
Yes.
you wouldn't do anything with free cash?
If they had it in free cash, that would be fantastic.
No. No, but, okay, that's what I was curious.
Right, and again, what happens is you have to do the design part of this first, working with the engineering department.
Oh, I understand how, you wouldn't guess that from looking at me now. I tried jogging on that street a few times, but I understand what you're talking about, but there's other physical problems.
Okay.
So the,
Anything else, Frank?
Nope.
Melissa?
so the 1.4 million. Whoa! I'm tired, I knew it was million, is just for a design. Is this what we're saying?
It's actually for the design, actually, Mark got the quote for that from the, from
DOT or
This is just
something?
the first step design.
This is the
And
first
then
step.
how,
GPI.
and that's also the permitting, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
May,
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
I probably have a follow-up question too, so.
I kept you.
you know, Peter asked me to reach out to our traffic engineers, to get a quote on this for design, only for design. And it is probably a higher contingency on it, and I'll tell you the reason why, and it could be less than that. On a road like that, that's pretty much just paved, and there's not a lot of shoulders, if you can just envision putting sidewalks, raising the elevation of the edge of the road, now you create drainage issues. Not necessarily the whole stretch of the road, but different areas are gonna have different situations. So by creating these drainage issues, you're gonna have to put catch basins and pipes in the road throughout the whole road. And to conform with the current stormwater requirements, you have to pipe those to a detention basin area, which is usually a very large area. And where would those areas be? They would be on private pieces of property throughout the area. Maybe we own some town properties, at this point we haven't designed it. So that accounts for that whole stormwater design, it accounts for the sidewalk design, surveying, the entire corridor. The whole road will be rebuilt, from sidewalk to sidewalk on each side. So it's a thorough design, it includes everything. But the reason why is right now, until you get into the design and survey the area, you won't know exactly what the extents of the design are from a stormwater standpoint until you survey it,
Okay.
so.
And maybe I missed this piece too. So I know that there are plenty of people on Turnpike Street who are looking for their sewer extension piece, and I'm not gonna digress into sewer.
Yep.
However, as we extend the sewer, what happens with this investment that we're looking at? Are we redigging, is this going to change this design at this juncture? Or are we truly investing in something that makes sense? Because I've walked that street and I know the dangers. It's one of the loops from where I live, and I really would love that to be a little bit more available for people, especially the people that live on Turnpike Street. But I just wanna understand the investment at this juncture versus at another time, even though I don't even like saying that. To be honest, I
That's a
don't.
great question, and we've thought about it, Peter and I have both talked about it. So if we're gonna pave a road and build new sidewalks and put drainage in, we're not gonna put blinders on the other utilities in the road.
Yeah.
So those utilities need to be analyzed as part of this project. The water line, if the water line's old, it needs to be upgraded, that's part of this. So a new water line may or may not have to go in, I don't wanna say one way or another, but we won't pave the road without replacing a water line that needs to be replaced. There are parts of Turnpike Street that does have sewer, and if there's portions that need to be extended, that we would have to do that at this point in time, because this road, we're not gonna wanna open up anytime soon.
Multiple times, right, exactly.
So that's the right planning, the right way to do it, and that's why the design is so high. If you didn't have to replace any utilities, you put one sidewalk on the road, and you had minimal drainage concerns, the project starts to be feasible, but we won't know that till we actually do the design part.
Fine. Just thinking about Turnpike Street that we've talked about and where it's going, and if this investment is better at this point or another, or whatever it might be.
If you look at the,
There was no questions,
there was,
She's done with are you done with the question?
done. I'm
Yeah.
done, but I don't need to-
wanna, did you have a quick comment, Peter?
Yes, a
Since
quick
you're the
comment.
petitioner? Okay.
if you look at the sewer extension part they did from Park Street into Campanelli, they did add sidewalks in that section. So they saw that, so this 1.2 that I have is actually a little bit less. The other,
1.4.
yeah, so, but the other side of it, the other
That's cute.
side of it that they're gonna be working on, from Park Street up to Campanelli, they have it in their design to extend the sidewalk. So, I mean,
Okay, thank you, Melissa, thank you, Peter, thank you, Mark. Okay, let's ask the committee members online. Anybody online for the committee? Any questions?
they fell asleep.
Seeing none? Since it's a public meeting, public hearing to the public, please step up, identify yourself, please, and ask your question.
Thank you. For the record, Mark Zemanian, Precinct 1. Through you, Mr. Moderator, I think I want to point this toward Mark. Do you have a sense of, and I won't hold you to the number, but are we talking a $3 million, a $5, or a $10 million project in all? And I'm hearing all the different things you're talking about, which is why I'm asking. It sounds a lot closer to 10 than it does to
Well, this is
Two,
just the
but-
article on the.
I understand that, but if we're investing monies in 1.4 million into a design, I wanna have a sense of what we're looking at for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be based on the design, obviously. A number of $10, $15, $20 million is in that range for that whole road.
And I won't hold
And it's
you.
gonna be really dependent on, are we upgrading certain utilities or
Yeah,
not? What
understood.
kind of drainage is involved? It could be on the lower side, but we just don't know at this point.
My second question is, as part of the other project that was talked about earlier, was this section of Turnpike proposed to be done as a second phase? I don't remember, to be honest
No.
with you.
No, there was parts of Turnpike that already have sewer in it.
Mhm.
So the 1.2 miles wouldn't all be sewered, but there are sections of it that do not have sewer, and they're gonna be included in phase 2 of the sewer project.
And I guess my question is, how far down this section, this one
I
point
think it
two
goes
mile
down,
section, would that
Cornell
have gone?
Drive, where Cornell Drive is, and
Guess,
Cornell
quarter of a
Drive-
mile, half a mile?
quarter mile maybe, I don't know,
Okay,
something like
okay.
that.
So this is really a separate situation. That's sort of what I'm looking for clarification for.
Cornell
Thank you.
Drive, I believe, got tied into when they did the Brewster.
Oh, thank you.
No, it doesn't have sewer.
Okay.
It's being-
That was, you answered my questions, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Peter,
you.
for bringing this forward.
Anybody else from the public? Public in-house here? Public online, anybody from the public online has a question? Seeing none, I think that concludes our articles for this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy and Mr. Tisdale.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing from the committee members?
Sure, motion to close.
Second.
Motion has been made to close by Frank Lyons, seconded by Melissa Lynch. I need a roll call vote. All those in favor by roll call, once I find my list. Jeff Blacker,
Yes.
thank you. Melissa Lynch,
Yes.
thank you. Elisa Rinaldi,
Yes.
thank you. Janice Schneider,
Yes,
and Janai, are you still here? Oh, yep, Janai?
Yes.
Yes. All right, the public hearing is now closed. Now we take whatever time is needed to discuss the articles. We can, well, Articles 3 and 4, does anybody have a problem? I'm trying to kind of make this somewhat, quick, but I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. 3 and 4 are pretty much, as Mark Tisdale explained, they're up every year, pretty much. Definitely Article 3 is. Anybody want to make a motion?
Do them together?
Yeah. We can do, why don't we do one at a time?
Okay. So what motion do you want?
Motion to recommend the town meeting. That would mean you'd want to vote yes,
Yeah.
tell town meeting to vote yes.
Yep, that's fine.
That's Article 3. You have that, Sam? That's the motion to recommend to town meeting. All right. And Article 4,
Sure.
want to say the same?
Motion,
Yeah,
that good enough?
no, motion to
Motion to
recommend. to town-
recommend, Article 4 to town meeting.
All right, anybody have an objection if we vote together on these two? Just raise your hand or yell out. No? Okay, just to make it official, did someone say something? No? Roll call vote?
No objection.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna try to just run through the list here. Just in case bond council's looking at the minutes, Jeff Blacker,
Yes.
Melissa Lynch,
Yes.
Alicia Rinaldi,
Yes.
Janice Schneider,
yes,
and Janai,
Yes.
and Frank Lyons.
Yes.
So, everybody, it's unanimous?
Yep.
Okay, next one up is, we did two there. This is Article 18, Community Preservation Committee Budget Report. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, can I get a motion?
Motion to recommend, which article is this?
Article 18.
18 to town meeting.
Is there a second?
second,
No one second those other two.
Oh, I'm sorry. On the Articles 3 and 4, can I get a second from somebody?
I'll second.
Okay, Melissa Lynch seconding that, my bad. And Frank, you made the motion on that, and who seconded the latest one? Melissa?
I think Janice.
Janice? I'm sorry, yeah, just trying to make notes, you got, I'll slow up, Sam, if you want me to slow up.
got it, keep it going. I got election stuff to do.
I know. I'm gonna take a roll call vote on this. This is to recommend the town meeting Article 18. Jeff Blacker,
Yes.
Melissa Lynch,
Yes.
Elisa Rinaldi,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
and Frank.
Yes.
Okay, we're moving right along, that's Article 18. Okay, Article 19, appropriate funds from fiscal 2025, the operating budget to OPEB. This is like routine, I've seen it so many times in the, at least every other year. Do I have a motion?
Motion to recommend Article 19 to town meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Seconded by Miss Melissa Lynch. Any discussion? This is Article 19. Okay, roll call vote. Jeff Blacker,
Yes.
Melissa Lynch,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
and Frank.
Yes.
Thank you. Hope you all don't mind me just call out your first names. It's quicker and
You're
easier.
doing fine.
Okay, that was Article 19. Article
29.
29, intersection improvements design, Plain and West Street intersection. Do I have a motion?
Motion to, well, no, because I don't want to recommend this.
Okay, anybody else have a motion? To recommend the town meeting or to?
Motion to recommend Article 29 to town meeting.
Melissa made them. I need a second from somebody in the, online.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Janice seconded it, thank you. All right, the roll call vote.
Well, can I say anything?
Yeah, discussion, sure, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make this quick, because it's gonna carry through to a couple other things that, I had mentioned a little earlier that there are other problems with the
Yep.
other budgets. And as long as the school budget is broken, all right, I'm not voting in favor of anything that uses free cash. Because I cannot look the kids in the face and say, we're gonna fix a street and we're gonna take your bus away. I can't do that. All right, and, you know, I don't know if the folks online are aware, but they're cutting $2.3 million out of the school budget. And it's pretty draconian cuts, it's pretty bad. Although they are not cutting teachers, they are cutting paraprofessionals, and it's gonna have a big impact. And the hearing to talk about that is on Wednesday, and I'm hopeful that things will get straightened out Wednesday, but until they are straightened out, I am not voting for anything that takes free cash.
Okay, anybody else for discussion on Article 29?
Can I say something, please?
Sure, Janice, go ahead.
Yeah, we've got 3 street improvement articles here, sidewalks, and every day, every time I drive down, Route 27, I drive by a cross on the side of the street where a little girl was killed because there wasn't an adequate sidewalk. And while I appreciate the cuts to the cuts to the school budget are draconian, driving by that cross every day is draconian. We need safe sidewalks for the kids to walk on to get to the schools that we're building for them. So that's it.
Okay, Janice, anybody else for discussion? Anybody online?
Yeah, the only thing I would say, you know, I definitely hear you on that. And were anything else going on, I would support it 1,000%. But not only are they're cutting the nurses in the schools, all right? And you're talking about, you know, is it more risky to have poor sidewalks for a bit longer, or to starting in September not have adequate nursing coverage?
Okay. Frank, make your comments to me.
Oh,
I just
sorry,
don't want any.
I was talking to the board.
Okay, I know,
I'm sorry.
That's okay, but I don't want any cross debate. I don't wanna get into
Yep,
debate
okay,
back
that's
and
fine.
forth. Okay? You're making your points. Anybody else for a discussion?
No, I will just say that I am hugely in support of the school budget going to where it should have been. I also am in favor of safety, so it is a bit of a catch-22 today at this moment. So I do honor and respect having children in the school system as well, and feeling strongly about that budget meeting on Wednesday. But I too do think safety and the detriment here is great, so I'm trying to balance that.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Anybody else? Final call for comments?
Yeah, just this particular one, was 50 grand for free cash, and that's not, I don't think that, you know, based on what he was saying with the priorities in the streets, this one wasn't, it was a low-hanging fruit. It wasn't necessarily as dangerous as some of the other ones.
I think the low-hanging fruit comment was related to accessing funding from the state.
Okay.
I could have been misunderstood, but I understood that as being like in the grand scheme of things on a master plan, but maybe maybe I didn't hear that properly.
No, I don't wanna speak for Mark Tisdale.
I'm not gonna speak
No.
for him either.
Yeah.
Nope.
All right, let's take a vote then. Okay, this is to recommend, this is Article 29, the intersection at Plain and West Street intersection design. This is the recommended town meeting. I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Tell me yes or no. Jeff Blacker? Jeff?
Yes, yes,
Thank you. Melissa?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Janai?
Yes.
And Frank?
Nope.
No. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 to 1. That motion passes. Okay, we're on to Article, hang on 1 second, 30. This is another intersection, Canton and School Street intersection improvements design. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to send to town meeting approved.
Okay, motion to recommend the town meeting? To approve? Okay,
Second.
Second, so that was Janice and Melissa seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, the only discussion I would say is, Mr. Tinsdale said this one was borrowing. All right, so I'm fine with that. All right, it was only because he was talking about free cash in the first one that I objected, so I'm fine with this.
I get it.
Yeah, okay, well, those are good comments, that's why we got a
Yep.
committee, you make your comments. Okay, anybody else for comments? Discussion? Hearing none, calling for the vote, roll call vote. This is Article 30, the Canton and School Street intersection improvements design. Jeff?
yes,
Melissa?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Janai?
Yes.
And Frank?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, we're moving right along, we're doing great. Article 33, this is the property located at 760 Washington Street, known as the Hole in the Ground. It's map 54, lot 285, off Rose Street, map 54, lot 180. Article 33, do I have a motion? Article 33.
Well, I can make a motion and not want to support it, right?
Yes, you can
Alright.
say motion not to recommend, or
That's
to refer.
confusing.
Should we have a should we
Sure,
have a
let's-
yeah, can we
conversation
talk
first
first?
and then
Yeah,
decide how
whatever
the
this committee wants to
committee may
do.
want to say to
Sure.
refer or not refer?
Sure.
Yeah, because that, you know, and talking to you, that kind of sounded half-baked. The number in the warrant wasn't the number that Mark said it was actually gonna be. And Mark, it sounded like the document that had the number that it was actually supposed to be.
He has an
Wasn't-
updated appraisal.
Right, but even then, it had mistakes in it. So I think before we can recommend it, the article should get straightened out.
As it stands today, I would vote to not recommend at this moment in time to town meeting because it was missing information that was critical for me
I
to
would
make a decision. That's my own perspective. If we go and spin it on the positive, then I would say no. If we go on the negative, then I would say yes, so.
Anybody else?
Am I incorrect that I thought the only thing that was not correct was the dollar value?
Well, my understanding, Jeff, was that the reason he couldn't give us the appraisal is there were other zoning issues, that there was other stuff wrong with the appraisal, which is why he couldn't
Okay,
use it.
Then I misunderstood it, okay.
I also think there's two parcels of property here that we're talking about. And that did bring up, was a bit troubling for me trying to decipher. And then what portion of the larger amount, even from the updated appraisal that was not shared yet, was apportioned to each
Yeah, I
one,
mean,
was not available to us.
maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I'm hoping the appraisal, when we finally see it,
I think,
would say everything.
agreed, I'm looking at it at this
Yeah.
moment in time,
Yeah,
today.
we don't know.
Well, if I could chime in here, there was a presentation last month. Town manager brought in a guest speaker.
Mhm.
I want to say it was a Mr. Fish, who talked about.
Ash,
Jay
Jay
Ash.
Ash.
Jay Ash.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry, Ash, you're right. So he talked about the missing revenue from that hole in the ground continuing to be a hole in the ground and not a source of tax revenue. And I was rather struck by that description of that lack of a building. All that said, the other reason to not put out an appraisal is if you're going to take it by eminent domain, you hand that alleged developer his profit on the project without him doing any of the work. I grew up in a town that had a hole in the middle of the town from a similar event, and fixing it took so long that they just said the hell with the whole thing and turned it into a park. Having said all of that, I'm taken with the idea that we did not have enough information to really make an informed decision. Numbers are flowing around, we don't know exactly what land we're talking about, and I got a real problem with this.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Anybody else from the committee? Hearing none. The only thing I would suggest is town meeting, it's better to make a positive motion. If you don't like this
And then vote it
motion,
down.
you vote, it's up to the committee.
I thought in the
Vote a
past, we
motion.
also put a disclaimer, or I'm
Yep,
using
you can say
disclaimer.
whatever you want.
And we wrote that due to lack of information at time of IGR meeting, that is why.
Yeah, you can
the
say
vote-
that too.
some-
can-
parentheses, but the
Yeah.
vote is what it was. If it's positive or negative, it's up to.
You can also say,
however we feel.
I think in the past, we say just refer to the town meeting, and then with that little note underneath.
What does it say? Disrefer?
Your motion to refer to town meeting, you're making no vote on it, and it's up to the committee,
Yeah,
whatever you want to do.
finance committee does that a lot. If they
like
didn't have
that.
stuff, yeah, because that's kind of what
Put a
happened.
note, put a
Yeah.
note underneath that, and someone from the committee,
I'm in favor of that.
How do we do that?
well, someone will have to make a motion from the committee to refer to town meeting, and you say you want to add a note, whatever your note wants to be.
Okay.
A
So-
comment, I should say a comment.
I make,
But some
okay.
of us don't wanna, so I will say, I don't wanna refer to town
oh,
meeting.
you don't even want it.
Because I
does-
don't have all the information to make
Oh, no,
a
that's-
It's
reference.
what
not
that means.
recommending the town meeting, it's recommending, when you say you recommend the town meeting, it means you're recommending to a positive, you want them to vote in favor of it. But if you just say refer to town meeting with a comment underneath that you didn't have
Okay,
enough
so it just said, we're
information.
voting on referring to town meeting, but not on a positive or a negative
That's correct.
Right.
inflection, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure the wording
Yeah.
was specific
Yeah.
before
Oh,
I
yeah.
say
Right.
something.
Or you can vote with the positive
So
refer,
motion to refer to town meeting for lack of information.
perfect, yep. That's your motion, Jeff, right?
Or-
Seconded.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff.
So we just said, I'm sorry, motion to refer to town meeting for lack of information.
That's fine, that works.
We're not voting for or against, we're telling town meeting they gotta decide.
Right, but, okay.
You can also add a comment that you've been
It's not very
saying.
clear that it was reviewed, like there was some sort of, I guess it just wasn't clear to me, maybe
Well, you can, why don't
the
you,
wording.
just to, so if the committee members wanna say, motion to refer to town meeting for, what was the rest of it, Jeff?
For lack of
For
information.
lack of information. You can put
Or
a,
should we say vote not taken due to lack of information?
you can say that in your comment,
I'm fine with that, cause it makes it clearer that the votes weren't, someone's gonna ask, what does IGR mean by this?
Right.
And I
Okay.
want it to be very clear that they understand that it wasn't just for lack of information, cause it sounds like it's related, that we referred it, but because of lack of information.
You can say something like, on your comments, it will say comments, during the public hearing, there was not enough information to make an informed decision,
Votes, yeah, something of that nature, yeah.
if you wanna say something like that.
So, okay.
Sure. Uh, Yeah, I'll make this note.
Thank you.
Okay. We're just getting through this one.
So motion, so I guess motion to refer to town meeting,
For lack of information,
period, votes
Yes.
not taken due to lack of information. It's clearer that we
Sure.
actually listened to something, it's not that we are referring because it's lacking information.
all right,
Sorry, my
No,
English.
that's
piece is-
okay.
Yeah.
You can speak before time.
votes not taken for lack of information,
Due to lack of
due to lack of
information.
information. Should we say due to lack of information at the public hearing?
At IGR public hearing,
Yeah,
however you,
okay.
yeah.
I'm just not trying to put
No,
words
no,
in
no,
your
no,
mouth.
I
Just
just
for
needed-
clarity,
Yep,
at the IGR public hearing. So let me read that one more time, and then someone's gonna make this motion correctly. Motion to refer to town meeting for lack of information, period. Votes not taken due to lack of information at IGR public hearing. You okay with that?
Beautiful.
I think so.
So moved.
Okay, Janice made the motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Frank Lyons seconded. And then, would someone like to get up and discuss that at town meeting from the committee? You don't have to, but,
Yeah, I don't care,
Would you-
I would,
If I,
yeah.
if I'm there.
Yeah,
I'm
you can
happy
if
to
you
help.
want.
No,
okay,
yeah.
Hopefully by
We
then
can
it'll be
tag
straightened
team
out.
if we needed
Yeah,
to.
right. Okay, I'm gonna take a roll call vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Yes to the motion.
I got you. Melissa was yes also. Alicia?
Yes.
Thank you. Janice?
Yes to the motion.
Yep. Janai?
Yes.
And Frank?
yes.
Okay, we're moving quite a bit, quite through here. Number 37, this is Hebrew Senior Life Affordable Senior Housing, the Project Support Funds. Article 37. Any discussion before the motion, or would you like to make a motion on it? Then do discussion.
I'm fine with a motion. You want a motion?
Make a motion
Motion to refer Article 37 to town meeting.
to recommend?
Recommend it.
To recommend. Motion to recommend Article 37 to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Discussion? Anybody have any discussion? Hearing none, if I don't see anybody raise their hand, I'm gonna call for a vote. Okay, this is to, motion to recommend the town meeting, that's pretty much saying you want them to vote on it. Vote in the affirmative, let me just get the roll call again. Jeff?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Janai?
Yes.
And Frank?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on. Next one is Article 40, Stoughton Youth Baseball Field Improvements. What would the committee like to do?
Motion to refer to town meeting, Article 40.
Motion to refer or motion to recommend?
To recommend, sorry.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
All right, motion was made by Melissa, seconded by Frank. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Calling for a roll call vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Janai?
Yes.
And Frank?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is Article 44, Climate Action Plan Committee Consultant. Anybody want to make a motion or discussion? It's up to the committee.
We can make the motion and then discuss.
Okay.
So motion to recommend to town meeting Article 44.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jeff. Any discussion?
Yeah, same discussion here. That's free cash. I'm not supporting that. I support the spirit of the article. hopefully by town meeting, things will have changed and I will get up and say I now support it, but right now I do not.
Anybody else for discussion?
Can I just say what Frank just said?
Sure, say what you want,
I just-
Janice. Go ahead, Janice.
Climate, okay, so we're having the warmest climate we've had. It hasn't snowed this winter and all that climate stuff. I have a problem with spending free cash on something like this when we have so many other things that we need to do. So I cannot support this article.
Okay, anybody else
I would
from the committee?
second Janice's comments.
You second Janice's comments?
Or I would echo, I guess I would
Echo?
echo Janice's comments. 1 second, it's not a motion.
That's
I'm
okay.
just echoing.
I know, I'm
Frank.
trying to be,
And I'm just trying to stay awake.
We're almost done, we're almost done. Anybody else for comments?
It is.
Okay, it was a motion to recommend the town meeting, that means you recommend them to vote for it, vote on it, vote for it, positive. So, you had your comments, I'm gonna take a roll call vote. Yea or
Can I
nay?
amend the motion,
Excuse me?
Bob? Excuse me, Bob, may I amend the motion?
You can make, yeah, you can make it, well, if Frank will accept the amendment, go ahead.
Yeah, what do you want to do?
I wanna refer it to town meeting, not recommend it.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I would say,
'Cause I was gonna abstain otherwise.
yeah, I mean, I was gonna recommend it and then vote no.
I like referring it,
Yeah, I don't,
and we can say because we don't want free cash.
right.
I basically want town meeting to decide.
Well, I mean, they will, we're just making a recommendation.
Well, we're kinda in the middle here. The motion was made
Yeah,
to,
we kind of are.
was that?
No, but the reason is not because we don't like the idea, it's because of the free cash.
Right, but I mean, that would be a comment. All right, and Jeff, if they straighten out the school budget before town meeting, I'll go up and say that, you know, we not, you know, at least me as a voting person now recommends it.
Yeah,
All right, because I do like it. It's just, you know, as Janice said, we got a bigger problem.
Yep.
And I'm really hopeful the problem will be straightened out before town meeting. So what do we do?
Well,
You have a motion in a second.
there is a motion and a second, that's all I'm saying. Any other discussion before I call for the vote on this particular motion? The motion is to recommend the town meeting. We heard the comments, pretty much everybody. We're gonna call for the vote, either yea or nay. Jeff,
can I abstain then?
sure? Okay, abstain. Melissa?
no.
No. Alicia?
Yes.
Janice?
I'm thinking. Abstain.
Abstain. Janai?
Yes.
And Frank?
No.
All right, so the motion fails, it doesn't pass, you know?
But I think we should put a note.
Yeah, you can put a comment.
All right, now Jeff
We
abstaining.
need to-
What's that?
I said, I think we need to put a comment.
Oh, yeah,
We've got
and I
Two
would,
noes, 2 abstains, and 2 yeses.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
motion fails.
yeah, and Jeff and Janice, you know, I would appreciate your input on what would be a good comment. Unless somebody
I
else
think
wants.
we gotta address the no and the abstain.
Yeah.
We like the idea, but prefer, we don't like the funding.
You okay with that?
But you have to address the no part and the abstain, so at the time of the public hearing, it was a no due to funding source and school concerns over school budget.
Okay.
That's would be, I don't know I don't know the driver of the abstaining, so I can't speak for that.
Well, the
Okay.
abstain's the same thing, I really like the idea, But, so I don't wanna really vote against it, but I don't wanna vote for it because of the funding.
Does that give you enough funds?
Yeah, I mean, Sam, are you typing this up? Okay, so you're saying the comment will be, it's 222, so the motion failed. At the time of the public hearing, the issue was the funding source
For the no and the abstentions.
for the no votes and the abstentions. That good enough?
My issue is the funding.
Yeah, the funding source,
Now, do
right?
you,
It's a
you
great
think they should
idea
say
to
something
fund
about the
it for it.
schools in there? Or is that not appropriate?
Well, I don't think you have to go that deep, you know. What do you think, Barry?
No, I don't think it
Nah.
Yeah, ask the lawyer.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the accountant.
It's half asleep.
Fully
So-
asleep.
So Barry, you giving free legal advice? What happened?
Anything
You must be tired.
Anything to help the proceedings move along.
All right, everybody comfortable with that?
Getting out of here.
So at the time of the public hearing, the issue was funding, the funding source for the no votes and the abstentions. I think that's enough. You can go up
I
there and
think
explain.
that's plenty.
Yeah, that's
fine.
plenty. All right, thank
I have
you.
a question about this, the funding source. Is the thought here that free cash would, resolve the deficits in this budget?
Temporarily. Potentially, it would kick the can down the road for a year. Potentially. But there's a lot between this and that. They have not had the hearing on the school budgets yet.
Is it Wednesday? The hearing
Yeah,
is Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
Is it okay if we move on? Does that answer your question, Janai?
Right, yeah?
Yeah, just to, free cash, there's only so much free cash. And that's it. So we're on to Article 49, civil service revocation. Any discussion, or can we have a motion?
You want a motion?
Motion to refer to town meeting, Article 49.
To refer or to recommend? Whatever you
Uh,
wanna do.
I'll recommend to town meeting.
Recommend.
Okay, is there a second? Melissa?
Second.
Okay, Melissa made the motion to recommend. Jeff seconded it. Any discussion?
Ready to vote?
Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. This is motion to recommend Article 49, the civil service revocation. Okay, all those in favor, yea or nay, Jeff?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes,
Janai?
Yes.
And Frank?
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. I think we're at the last one, ladies and gentlemen.
yay.
Yeah, I know. Article 52, sidewalks on Turnpike Street from Central Street to Park Street, design. It's a petition article. So Article 52, do we have a motion or to start with discussion? Whatever you want.
I guess. Okay, motion to recommend Article 52 to the town meeting.
To recommend. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Okay, motion by Frank Lyons, seconded by Melissa. Motion to recommend to town meeting. Okay, any discussion?
I mean, it sounds crazy expensive, but it's also a big problem.
Any
I
further?
can't get over the cost for this myself.
Okay, any other committee discussion?
I would agree the cost is high, but being precinct 3, this directly impacts the precinct that I represent, so I wanna, I use that street, I know the challenges, and I wanna make sure that I represent the individuals in those areas as well.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, those won't go into the book, but
What? No, I'm not asking
Okay.
to make my comment into the
Yeah,
book,
okay.
it's just commenting.
unless you want to,
No.
each precinct person.
No,
All right, any other
just
comments?
when we need clarity.
Okay, that's good. Hearing no other comments, I'm gonna call for the vote. Jeff,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Alicia?
No.
No. Janice?
Yes,
Janai,
Yes.
and Frank.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. You know, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.